during that partly sunny time, you might go outside a few minutes to get some vitamin D.
Founder of 5 Sparrows. Oak Grove Plantation. Oak Grove will have tours, reenactors, demonstrations, a blacksmith, music, and vendors on Saturday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and on Sunday from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the plantation. 8640 Burnett Road, Godwin. Admission is $5. Children under 5 are free. We want to hear from you. Please submit your events in writing at least 10 days in advance.
And here we are with applause. Emily Ruth Rice of Lumber Bridge was named to the honor roll of the academic dean at Mars Hill University for the fall of 2017 semester. Marisa Kane of Pinehurst was named to the president's list at Coastal Carolina University in Conway, South Carolina for the fall 2017 semester. Today in history. Today is Wednesday, February 21, the 52nd day of 2018. There are 313 days left in the year. Today's highlight on February 21, 1965, Black Muslim leader and civil rights activist Malcolm X was shot, 39 years old, to death inside Harlem's Audubon Ballroom in New York by assassins identified as members of the Nation of Islam. 3 members were convicted of murder and imprisonment. All were eventually paroled. I don't understand that. Murdering a very famous public figure and then being paroled. In 1885, the Washington Monument was dedicated. In 1916, the Battle of World War I, the Battle of Verdun began in France as German forces attacked. In 1945, during the World War II Battle of Iwo Jima, the escort carrier USS Bismarck Sea was sunk by kamikazes with the loss of 318 men. In 1947, inventor Edwin H. Land publicly demonstrated his Polaroid Land camera, which used self-developing film to produce a black and white photograph in 60 seconds. I remember that, and my father was very impressed with Mr. Land. In 1975, former Attorney General John N. Mitchell and former White House aides H.R. Holland, actor Titus Burgess is 22.
Wow, 22. North Regional Branch 20th anniversary. The public is invited to celebrate the 20th anniversary of North University's Black student movement devoted to promoting cultural diversity through music. In addition to the anniversary, the performance is in recognition of Black History Month. Since its opening on February 21st, 1998, North Regional Library has offered a variety of programs, 144 items through the North Regional Branch, and nearly 10,775 people on a branch of the American Institute for Architects, with 14,020 students.
Here's Letters to the Observer. Learn about heart disease. President and CEO Alliance for HVD occurs when one or more of the heart valves do not work properly. The disease reduces blood flow and can cause major health complications. Estimates show at least 5 million Americans fall victim to this disease, resulting in 25,000 deaths a year. An estimated 68 people per day, individuals over the age of 75, are especially vulnerable to HVD, along with those who have experienced previous heart-related problems. Yet, nearly 75% of Americans have very little knowledge about HVD. Fortunately, once detected, valve disease is usually treatable for patients of all ages. Visit www.valvediseaseday.org to learn more. You never know when this information might help save a life. And here's one from Hope Mills. Maybe a cause for 4-year terms. Hope Mills commissioners are having a serious discussion about changing the length of their terms. from 2 years to 4. There's some merit in the idea and one big drawback. On the plus side, it takes a new commissioner a year or more to learn the ins and outs of municipal law and town operations. And then it's time to run for re-election, which can soak up a lot of time that could be put to better use. And even veteran commissioners find the second term of each term distracting, as they form committees and tend to all the details of a successful campaign. A 4-year term would function better, especially if the terms are staggered and only half the board was running in any given year. That's better continuity that way, and a guarantee that experienced hands stay on board. On the downside, if voters elect a dud, the town is stuck with a hapless board member for 4 years. Not helpful. This decision needs a lot more discussion, but we find ourselves at this point leaning toward the longer term. But any change in the town charter needs final approval by the voters.
Harris files to challenge Pittenger. Republican Mark Harris of Charlotte filed on Monday to run for the 9th District congressional seat held by fellow Republican and Charlotte resident Representative Robert Pittenger. Harris, who is a former president of the North Carolina Baptist Convention, narrowly lost to Pittenger in the 2016 Republican primary. He also was a candidate in the U.S. Senate primary in 2014 and was a leader in the successful effort in 2012 to amend North Carolina's Constitution to prohibit gay marriage. Pittenger and Harris have been bashing each other as they have striven to assert their conservative bona fides Republican votes. Meanwhile, Republican Clarence Goins of Eastover has also entered the race. So far, 2 Democrats have filed for the seat, according to the State Board of Elections and Ethics Enforcement website. Dan McCready and Christian Cano. Both are from Charlotte. Cano lost to Pittenger in the 2016 general election. Libertarian Jeff Scott of Charlotte is also in the race. The 9th District runs across the south side of North Carolina from Charlotte to Fayettville. Elsewhere, Scott Huffman of Spencer filed Tuesday for the 8th District congressional seat held by Republican Richard Hudson of Concord. Huffman will face another Democrat, Frank McNeil of Aberdeen, in the May primary. The 8th District runs across central North Carolina from the Charlotte area suburbs to Fayetteville. Democrat Linda Coleman filed for the 2nd District seat held by Republican U.S. Representative George Holding. Coleman has run twice for Lieutenant Governor. The 2nd District includes Harnett County. Holding faces a primary challenge from Alan Chesser of Lewisburg. Republican U.S. Representative Mark Walker filed Tuesday for re-election to the 6th District seat in the Fayetteville-Fort Bragg region. The 6th District includes Lee County. 2 Democrats, Gerald Wong of Greensboro and Ryan Watts of Graham, previously filed. Republican Representative David Rouser of Benson filed Monday for re-election to the 7th District seat. Democrat Kyle Horton of Carolina Beach is also in that race. The 7th District includes Sampson County and part of Bladen County.
Here's public safety. Cumberland County arrests Teresa Catrice McEachern, or Eachern, 28 of the 300 block Scotland Drive, was charged Tuesday with possessing cocaine, maintaining a drug house, possessing marijuana with an intent to manufacture, sell, or deliver, misdemeanor child abuse, and misdemeanor resisting arrest. Bail was set at $50,000. Uzziah Denzel Lee, 24 of the 400 block of East 8th Street in Red Springs, was charged Tuesday with assault with a deadly weapon with intent to kill, inflicting serious injury, larceny, and possessing stolen property. Bail was set at $250,000. Jason Edward Henry, 36 of the 3200 block of Varine Street, was charged Tuesday with larceny, possessing stolen property, misdemeanor assault on a female, and misdemeanor child abuse. Bail was set at $3,000. Javaris Omar Melvin, 27, of the 6400 block of Ginger Circle, was charged Tuesday with possession of firearm by a felon. Bail was set at $10,000. Oh, he's probably got more of those at home. Ryan Derry Hopkins, 22, of the 200 block of Mackenzie Road, was charged Tuesday with trafficking in cocaine, maintaining a drug dwelling or vehicle, possessing cocaine, and possessing cocaine with intent to manufacture, sell, or deliver. Bail was set at $20,000. Jeremy Edmund Parks, 38, of the 700 block of Duggins Way, was charged Tuesday with larceny of shows in action. I have no idea what that means or if it's in a script. Shows in action. Forgery, maintaining a drug dwelling, possessing a counterfeit substance with intent to sell and deliver, and being a habitual felon. Bail was set at $30,000. I'm so glad that habitual felon will be soon back out on the street. Bonanza Drive, Compare Food Store at 155 Bonanza Drive. Reported at 3:27 a.m. Tuesday that money was taken. I don't really understand that real well either, but okay, Ralph.
No excuses. It's time to act on mass shootings. Last week's deadly shooting at a high school in Parkland, Florida may be the only in a long, troubling line of such mass murders that leads to political action. Students and parents are holding rallies across the nation demanding that lawmakers act against our epidemic of gun deaths. No other nation on the planet is as blood-soaked as ours. And the typical legislation reaction, a helpless look and a shrug while repeating Second Amendment, is no longer an acceptable response. It never was. We can be certain that the founders didn't envision children mutilated bodies lying in hallways and classrooms when they adopted the Bill of Rights. And we can be equally certain that those men of vision wouldn't have ignored such a threat to their children's future. But modern politicians have been reluctant to take aggressive action against gun violence, at least until now. The students at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, and they've already inspired action. House Speaker Tim Moore is appointing a legislative committee to study ways to prevent school shootings and to keep students and teachers safe from shooters. We hope the committee does better than the dangerous, unworkable solution proposed by Representative Larry Pittman of Cabarrus County last week. Pittman says he would allow school personnel to carry firearms and train them to use them. The trouble is, even some police officers aren't fully prepared to take out an active shooter amid the hysteria and chaos of dozens or even hundreds of children and teachers fleeing for their lives. A clean shot in that environment requires more training than a teacher or principal has time for. Arming teachers, the overwhelming majority of whom say they don't want to handle weapons, is not a workable answer that might lead to more innocent lives lost during an active shooter incident. But there are other proposals that have great merit. One that will be put before the General Assembly and particularly suited to cases like the Florida shooting, which shares a common thread with many other such incidents. A shooter who is suffering from serious mental illness, a person who acquaintances later proclaimed, "I knew he was going to blow up and do something like this someday." Representative Patricia Morley, a Durham Democrat, is proposing a law that allows judges to issue a gun violence restraining order that lets police take guns away from people who may pose a threat. Morley, a former judge, said this week, "I have heard witnesses testify who had no relationship to the person accused. They were a time bomb. They were waiting to go off. As a citizen couldn't do anything, well, this is empowering our citizens to be able to do something." We hope legislative leaders don't scuttle her bill simply because she's a Democrat. 6 states allow gun violence restraining orders, and they are as politically as Connecticut and Indiana, California and Texas. It's a protection from gun violence that every state should have. And on the federal level, we need better protection too. That should begin with improving the background check process so that no one slips through the cracks. As countless mass shootings show, these checks need to include ways to stop people with severe mental illnesses from buying guns and ammunition. The President has already pushed for those changes, so surely both parties in Washington can improve our protection. That really is the bottom line. It's time for the political bickering, infighting, and the end. We've got to be better than that. We've got to all agree that keeping our kids alive is our highest priority, and that Second Amendment wasn't written to protect the right profoundly ill shooters to spray gunfire through school hallways. If we can't do that, we need to look in a mirror and ask, what kind of people are we?
Well, we're the kind of people that allow that to go on, and even if the FBI has been alerted, which is just unfathomable, isn't it? After somebody called up and even gave them the name of the shooter. And we don't jail people long enough, as you can always tell by reading the paper. A little slap on the wrist and back out on the streets, commit more crime. Here's something I've been wondering about: 4 factors that have impacted gas prices. Question: why have gas prices fluctuated so much? There are about 6 or 7 different prices around Fayetteville. There is no shortage at this time. Why are prices so high? From J.M. of Fayetteville. Well, thank you for asking that question, because I've been wondering about it every day for several weeks. High is a relative term, J.M. After all, gasoline prices exceeded $4 per gallon less than 10 years ago. But it's true that prices rose here from mid-December through the end of January, according to GasBuddy.com. The price tracking website says Fayetteville fuel prices have been drifting down this month. According to news accounts of the state of oil and gasoline supplies and costs, several things have driven up the price of gas. Venezuela was one of the top oil producers on this side of the world, but its oil sector is collapsing, driven by mismanagement and underinvestment at the state oil company. The Wall Street Journal reported in January, and that's the number one reason, the problems in Venezuela. Therefore, number 2, the United States is producing more oil and therefore more gasoline. You might think that would push prices down here, but instead of selling all of the gasoline in the United States, USA Today reported the oil companies are exporting it for sale in South America because there is a demand there in the wake of Venezuela's troubles. And number 3, world demand for oil and gasoline are rising due to strong economic activity. And number 4, the OPEC nations and Russia have been limiting their oil output in an effort to push prices up.
Fayetteville State to preview dancers. The Road to Oz starts Thursday night at Husk Hardware House. The Center for Economic Empowerment and Development, or SEED, will host a preview of its fundraising Dancing with the Fayetteville Stars. The event starting at 6 p.m. at the downtown Fayetteville Restaurant and Brewery on 405 Hay Street. The event, to be held April 21st at McCormick Farms at 8195 McCormick Bridge Road in Spring Lake, will feature 17 dancing teams performing in styles ranging from hip-hop to ballroom. The theme is a night in Emerald City, with the venue decorated like the Wizard of Oz, complete with yellow brick road. The theme illustrates the focus on heart, courage, brains, and home. Money raised goes toward the center's anti-poverty initiatives. We are transforming the barn in the Emerald City, said Alyssa Hennessy, SEED Director of Events and Promotions. They can walk the yellow brick road to the big event. On Thursday, the teams will perform short previews of the dances they'll be doing April 24th. April 21st, that is. Then they will auction items donated by local merchants. Everything from handmade jewelry to wine baskets to an electric guitar. We have a lot of talented dancers, Hennessy said. 7 of the teams are professional dancers. The team that raises the most money wins the contest. People can vote for their favorite dancers by making donations to Seed at the center's website. This year is special for Dancing with the Fayetteville Stars. It's the event's 10th year, and it'll mark over 1 million raised. The most we've ever raised was $106,000, and that was last year, Hennessy said. It's grown every year. Admission to Thursday's preview is free. More information is available at the Seed website by calling Hennessy at 323-3377 extension 25 or emailing her or at events@ncc.org.
Here's the morning article.
Morning. What did he say it was morning? What's this?
Articles.
School on lockdown after threat in Cape Fear High School. That's in Eastover. I was just hearing yesterday someone said they got the names of the high schools mixed up. But the Cape Fear High School is in Eastover. And put on a code yellow lockdown Tuesday because of an unsubstantiated threat on social media, a school spokeswoman said. Spokeswoman Renarta Clanton-Moyd said the step was taken as a proactive measure. She said additional security was on campus. Law enforcement is investigating, and at this time the threat is not considered credible, Moyd said in a news release issued Tuesday morning. However, our school system takes all threats seriously and reports them to law enforcement for investigation. Moyd said Code Yellow refers to a state of proceeding with caution. The Cumberland County Sheriff's Office said it had no information on the threat. Schools officials referred questions to Moyd.
Suspect pleads guilty to murder. James Allen Chambers II is still missing, but the man accused of killing him pleaded guilty on Tuesday to his murder. Howard Adrian Ashland was sentenced in Cumberland County Superior Court on Tuesday to at least 15 years, 6 months, but no more than 19 years, 8 months, for shooting Chambers to death in August 2014. He had been arrested just 8 days prior. The story of the murder, the years-long investigation, and Ashland's ultimate arrest has many twists and turns. These include a long missing man, repeated efforts to dispose of the body, a religious experience, a guilty conscience, and more than a year of secret plea bargain negotiations from Fayetteville to Florida to try to get Ashland to surrender. I can say with certainty that Ashland was the prime suspect from the beginning, Cumberland County District Attorney Billy West said Tuesday, but law enforcement had only tenuous evidence. Although the case is closed and Ashland is entering the prison system, authorities are still searching for Chambers' body in eastern North Carolina, so Chambers' family can bury him. Ashland told authorities he dumped the body off a bridge, but he isn't sure where. Chambers, who was 28, was a civilian construction worker at Fort Bragg. He had worked with Ashland, and he was last seen alive at his home in Fayetteville on the evening of August 15, 2014, by his former girlfriend, Prosecutor Robbie Hitt said. Ashland was there, and the former girlfriend thought Ashland was going to drive Chambers to a weekend lifeguard job at a lake out of town, Hick said. There had been an ongoing animosity between the men. The reason is unclear, but apparently it had gotten close to violent between the two of them before. The tension escalated in the truck that evening. Ashland's story is that he stopped his pickup, took a gun from the bed, and fired into the cab. West said that Ashland asserted that he intended only to scare Chambers, but the bullet struck and killed him. Ashland that night visited a marijuana dealer and made incriminating comments about having money from a dead man. The dealer did not report these comments to the police. Investigators found and interviewed him later. The investigation began after Chambers' family reported him missing late August 2014. Ashelman has told authorities that he first burned and buried Chambers' body in the Wade area of Cumberland County. As the investigation continued, he became concerned that it would be found. So West said Ashelman said he dug up the body, dismembered it, and put it in plastic garbage bags, drove to a remote bridge over a waterway, and dropped it over the side. And because he was afraid that police would find evidence in his pickup, West said, he had it crushed at a salvage yard. Fayettville police investigators tracked down the remnants of the truck and recovered a seat belt, West said. They found no evidence from Chambers on it. Recorded a mission. Ashelman later moved to Florida and got married. And there, West said, Ashelman claims they found a religion since that happened. And he wanted to come clean about the homicide. So Ashelman told his wife about it over several conversations, and she recorded him at least once and told the police in Florida. Police there interviewed Ashelman but did not arrest him. But Ashelman got a lawyer there, and Cumberland County Assistant Public Defender David Smith began representing him. Law enforcement wasn't ready to arrest him at the time because the evidence was not strong enough. Instead, Ashelman was expected to surrender a year ago, but the negotiations failed. Efforts to resolve the case continued last year and into this year. Ashelman drove to North Carolina ostensibly to surrender, but the negotiations failed again. Law enforcement decided to bring him in, Hicks said. Ashelman was arrested February 12th in Randolph County on charges of robbery and murder. Once he was in custody, the plea negotiations continued. He added 6 months to Ashelman's sentence for his failure to turn himself in as originally promised. The case came to close Tuesday morning with Ashelman's guilty plea. Defense lawyer Smith said he could talk little about the case because of attorney-client privilege. But suffice it to say, the defendant wanted to give the members of the Chambers' family some closure.
What an odd story. This is the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service, a United Partnerway agency. We broadcast from the campus of Fayetteville State University, and our signal is carried by WUNC Chapel Hill. As a nonprofit agency who rely on public donations, we request your support to continue our services. When making charitable donations, please keep SCNCRRS in mind. Our post office box number is 35029, Fayetteville, North Carolina, 28303. If you have any questions or comments, please call us at 910-672-1600 or our toll-free number, 1-844-709-5656. Your radio hosts today are Marty Baldwin and Ralph
Walkie Robertson.
And we are proud to serve you today. I really want to read this one. It's about, here we are, meanwhile, in Chicago's war zone by Michael Gerson. His Washington Post columnist. Email him at address Michael Gerson @ or A with a circle around it. On the same day as the Parkland school shooting, I found myself on the south side of Chicago talking with the victims and perpetrators of a different continuing massacre. At the optimistically named Youth Peace Center of Roseland, Ammon told me of being shot 6 times in the back and head. Until you lay in your own blood, he said, you can't understand. His friend Dee has 3 bullet scars. We was in a war, he explained, just like Iraq. Not far away, the staff and participants at IMAN Inner City Muslim Action Network were mourning the recent death of Stephen Ward, who took part in the violence prevention program on his way home from taking his kids to a trampoline park. While stopped at a traffic light, Ward was executed in front of his family. In the local newspapers, killings such as these rate a few paragraphs as another gang-related homicide. But this does little to portray the horrifying reality. There are war zones within the borders of America. Though the numbers are recently down a bit, Chicago had more than 650 murders in 2017. Some young men take precautions appropriate to Beirut, circling their home block 3 or 4 times in search of any person or car that's out of place before they will park. Others must be smuggled out of the city to avoid revenge killings. Activists working with gang members describe a perfect storm of unintended consequences. The tearing down of Chicago's high-rise public housing monstrosities caused the diffusion of gang problems into other neighborhoods. Aggressive policing that put many gang members in prison also removed a source of structure in a neighborhood, leaving smaller groups, sometimes of 3 or 4, engaged in chaotic block-by-block warfare. In this environment, relatively minor provocations, trash talk by a rap music star, social media disrespect, a stolen watch can result in years of murder and revenge. What can be done? Becoming a man. Employ a form of group therapy to keep young men from going off track. During the session I attended at Phillips High School, students took turns sharing their personal struggles, building a kind of brotherhood. Role-playing is used to encourage values such as integrity, accountability, and respect for women. And there is good preliminary evidence that the participation in BAM, B-A-M, Becoming a Man, significantly reduces violent crime and arrest. But reducing gang violence also requires someone to enter the most damaged lives. At the Youth Peace Center, young men leaving gang life are not only matched with jobs, but with life coaches who take a daily interest in their success. At I-Man, older mentors are matched with young men, providing a father figure in largely the fatherless lives. There is a waiting list to enter the program. Both efforts are now getting serious help from an effort called Chicago CRED, C-R-E-D, Creating Real Economic Destiny, led by former Secretary of Education Arne Duncan. With deep roots in Chicago, Duncan has tried to bring greater resources and sense of urgency to the prevention of violence, in which progress is measured life by life. This is not a second chance, Duncan told me. They didn't have a first chance. The young men I met were disarmingly transparent and reflective. Dee talked of having trouble getting up at 8 a.m. for work and learning was not a good idea to walk into jobs tweaking while high on drugs. All of the participants I met reported some rock bottom moment when the downward trajectory of their lives became unacceptable. My son is 4 months old, M told me. If I had died, my kids wouldn't know me. All they would have is a picture. Programs like these succeed by gathering a community in which young men from different gangs don't view each other as ops, but as brothers. The only force sufficient to defeat retaliation is reconciliation, which can be remarkable to witness. When Duncan was young, his friend, basketball star Ben Wilson, was murdered by a 16-year-old named Billy Moore. I hated him all my life, Duncan told me. After serving 20 years in prison, Moore is now one of the life coaches at I-Man, working with Duncan to reclaim the young lives. A few months ago, Moore's only son was murdered, shot 16 times. If the young men who shot my son come through those doors, Moore told me, I would help them. In order to ask for forgiveness, I must extend forgiveness. Good public policy can promote order and justice, but ending the Chicago massacre will require miracles of mercy. Yeah, they just ought to tear the whole place down.
No safe place to hide. Beirut. Government forces bombed the northeastern suburbs of the Syrian capital for a second straight day on Tuesday, killing more than 100 people and raising the specter of a full-scale offensive that could spell catastrophe for the nearly 400,000 residents trapped under siege. Rescuers raced to reach survivors in the devastated Damascus suburbs known as Eastern Ghouta as warplanes and helicopter gunships circled overhead, bombing hospitals, apartment blocks, markets, and other civilian targets. The suburbs are the last major stronghold for rebels in the capital region. At least 250 civilians were killed during the 48-hour unrelenting onslaught that began Monday, including 58 children. according to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights monitoring group. Another 1,000 people were wounded. We no longer have the words to describe children's suffering in our outrage, the UN Children's Advocacy said in a terse statement about the carnage. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov appeared to endorse the unrestrained assault, which he said was backed by the Russian Air Force. In keeping with the existing agreements, a fight against terrorism cannot be restricted by anything, he said. Russia has been an unwavering ally of Syrian President Bashar Assad and was instrumental in the all-out assault in the late 2016 that ejected rebels from the enclave in eastern Aleppo, Syria's largest city before the war, an outcome that Lavrov said he could serve as a model for eastern Ghouta. Pro-government forces have been amassing since the weekend on the perimeter of the rebel-held region. A collection of towns and farmland that once provided grain and fruit to the capital before nearly 5 years of warfare turned it into a landscape of havoc and despair. The towns of eastern Ghouta were among the first to organize into self-governing collectives and shake off government rule after popular demonstrations against Assad swept through the country in 2011, eventually leading to civil war. They are also among the last to resist Assad's determined campaign to bring every last rebellious corner of the country to heel. Assad and his allies maintain they are fighting a war on terrorism. Montafar, the spokesman for the Ahrar Sham rebel faction operating in eastern Ghouta, said densely populated residential areas were bearing the brunt of the attacks. A hallmark tactic of the government and its allies to devastate civilian areas and infrastructure before launching a final ground assault. The battle for rebel-held East Aleppo culminated in the evacuation of tens of thousands of civilians from their homes, with many unable to return. A subsequent UN investigation charged that the campaign amounted to forced displacement of a population and rose to the level of a war crime. The outcome could still be a while coming in the eastern Ghouta, which is considerably larger than East Aleppo. It also divided between two rebel factions that deeply distrust each other, as well as a small presence of Al-Qaeda-linked fighters and a handful of other militias that could lead to the fragmentation of the enclave. It is perhaps more likely that government offenses develop into a patchwork of partial surrenders, ceasefires, interim deals, and carve-ups that won't end the conflict, but change the way the enclave looks and functions. On the road to final defeat, Lund said.
Public water urged for Gen X homes. Naturally. It took me so long, years and years and years. Residents who have private wells contaminated with potentially cancer-causing chemical need access to a public water system, Cumberland County's Environmental Health Director said Tuesday. More than 150 wells around the Camor's plant, just across the Reagan County line, have elevated levels of Gen X, a compound that has been linked to several forms of cancer in animal studies. It isn't known if the effect is the same on humans. Daniel Ortiz, the Environmental Health Director for Cumberland County, talked to the County Board of Health about the contamination at its meeting. He said the department gets calls from residents concerned about the issue. Residents with the contaminated wells are having to use bottled water to brush their teeth, Ortiz said. I feel really bad for these people. What do they use to shower? Anything you put on your skin, some of it goes into your body. Ortiz said county commissioners are right to make running water lines to the area a priority. Commissioners voted Monday to hire a company to do a preliminary engineering report that will estimate the cost of running water lines to the area. Ortiz said the residents need public water, even though Camor's is testing filters on 4 houses in the area. It's just a temporary fix, he said. Camor's makes Gen X at the plant. The compound is used in nonstick cookware and other products. The state started investigating Gen X in June after news broke that researchers had reported the previous year that they had found it and similar compounds in the Cape Fear River downstream from the plant. The company agreed to stop discharging the chemical into the river, but it was later discovered in more than 250 private wells around the facility. In other action at the Health Board meeting Tuesday, board members had a lively discussion after Dr. William Philbrook, board chairman, talked about an email he had received that he thought was written by a county commissioner. The article questioned the management of the health department, mentioning problems with the jail health program, the closure of clinics, failure to notify women of test results, and high fees for flu shots. County Commissioner Jeanette Council, who is a member of the Health Board, said the document was the Fayettville Observer editorial. "I cannot sit here and be blamed," she said. "We did not do this." Philbrook said the email looked like an official document. "I don't know where it came from," he said. Philbrook defended the board, saying it had been doing good work for years. He said the board has only faced criticism in the past several months. "All of a sudden now, we're the worst board that ever existed," he said. Philbrook said he was thinking about resigning but not take that step. "I thought maybe I was the reason the board is going to pot," he said. Dr. Connette McMahon, the vice chairman of the board, said the commentary was upsetting. "I want to let people know we do care about the citizens of this county," she said. Ethelyn Holden Baker asked the board during the public comment portion of the meeting to reopen the adult health and dental clinics on a full-time basis. The county closed the 2 clinics in July because of budget cuts. The health department worked out a partnership in September with Stedman Wade Health Services to reopen them on a part-time basis. Baker said county residents deserve access to care. She said some residents who use the health department aren't happy with the services. Philbrook thanked Baker and several people with her for coming to the meeting. Well, that's, in a way, I really don't think people who get free anything should complain about it. Here's a third arrest in apartment shooting. A Crime Stopper tip led to the arrest Tuesday of a man wanted in a shooting that happened in the Carlson Bay Apartments on February 16 of last year. Fayette police said Krishawn Tyrone Johnson, 23, of the 900 block of Louise Circle is charged with attempted first-degree murder, assault with a deadly weapon with intent to kill, robbery with a dangerous weapon, conspiracy, and felon in possession of a firearm. He is one of 3 people accused of breaking into the apartment on Carlson Bay Circle in the complex off Cliffdale Road about 4:35 a.m. and shooting David Dotson, 31. Dotson was shot multiple times and was in critical condition when he was taken to Cape Fear Valley Medical Center. Members of the Fayetteville Police Department's Violent Criminal Apprehension Teams and the U.S. Marshals Task Force arrested Johnson, who's being held in the Cumberland County Detention Center without bail. Tavon Jacquali Simmons, 21, was arrested in September and charged with the same offenses as Johnson. Pierre Marquise Russ, 28, who was arrested February 19, 2017, is charged with attempted first-degree murder, robbery with a dangerous weapon, and conspiracy. And they just shoot, kill, and don't seem to know any better.
The Fayetteville City Council's future UDO committee will look into how the city's stormwater ordinance affects the Unified Development Ordinance. That's a very big part of the ordinance, Colvin said. Colvin's response came after Stormwater Advisory Board Chairman David Gray raised concerns last week that the stormwater ordinance would not be discussed by the Unified Development Ordinance Committee. Most cities created UDOs to manage their growth by the 1990s. Fayetteville was behind the curve, putting a UDO into effect in 2011. The UDO regulates a variety of residential and commercial development, including signs, lighting, fences, roads, and neighborhood creation. Some have criticized the UDO since its creation, claiming the standards are unfair to businesses. City Councilman Bill Crisp announced last year that he intended to create a committee to look into what areas of the UDO needed to be changed. He had to include himself, City Development Services Director Gerald Newton, City Councilman DJ Hare, Jimmy Kaiser, and John McCauley. Kaiser is a civil engineer with Mormon, Kaiser, and Rietzel Incorporated. McCauley has since let Chris know he does not want to be on the committee. Chris said he has given Colvin additional suggestions, none of which are tied to the Stormwater Board. It's not the time to talk about stormwater, Chris said. He added that he wanted to wait for a study comparing federal regulation to other cities of similar size. The guy said he emailed the City Council last week about his board's exclusion from the preliminary group suggested by Chris. I sincerely hope you will wait to hear from us before any stormwater decisions are made. The Stormwater Advisory Board, which was created by the City Council, formed a stakeholders group to begin reviewing the ordinance in 2007. The board advises the city on how to regulate development to minimize the damage caused by stormwater, which is the pooling of water in large amounts, often after heavy rain. The UDO and stormwater ordinances are separate regulations that require developers to construct buildings according to certain standards. Some, such as longtime developer Ralph Huff, feel the two regulations are closely related. I don't know how you talk about one without the other.
Historic militia honors one of its own. Jim Ammons thought it strange that his uncle's name was not among those on the World War II memorial wall that hangs in the Fayetteville Independent Light Infantry Armory. The omission gave him cause to note that the World War II memorial wall was not included as one of the honored casualties. I don't know what FILI means, but there are other names: Lawrence C. Everett, Charles N. MacArthur Jr., and Robert G. Porteous or Jones, all killed in action in World War II, were already honored on the wall. A plaque listing all of the FILI members who served in World War II was already on the wall as well. The private Joseph Benjamin Tyler's name was nowhere to be seen. And so therefore, Jim Ammons talked to the family members, and we had our FILI records checked. We could not confirm his membership. And therefore was the rub. We could not include him, Ammons said about the memorial wall, based on the hearsay statements of relatives. Ammons can tell you all about hearsay, and as the senior resident Superior Court judge for the 12th Judicial District of Cumberland County, he knows that hearsay testimony doesn't carry weight like facts. I needed some additional proof, the judge says, and I began to do research and found information on a find a grave memorial listing his place of burial and reprinting a part of an article about his burial. I then found a copy of the original article from the Fayettville Observer about Uncle JB's body being returned to Fayetteville for burial in May of 1948. The newspaper story on May 26, 1948 said Private J.B. Tyler Jr. died December 14, 1944 while serving with the 475th Infantry in Burma. He was only 24. Tyler had enlisted in the Army at Fort Bragg, the Observer story said, and received his basic training at Fort Riley, Kansas, and was deployed overseas in September 1944. Prior to entering the service, he was connected with his brother Fulton Tyler in the operation of the Carolina News Company, the story said. He was a member of the Fayetteville Independent Light Infantry and attended local study schools. That's what that initials mean. It means Fayetteville Independent Light Infantry. Survivors, the story said, were his wife, one child, parents, Mr. and Mrs. J.B. Tyler, Sr. of Fayetteville, three brothers, Fulton Tyler, Lee Tyler of Fayetteville, and Monroe Tyler of Portsmouth, Virginia. Two sisters, Mrs. E.F. Ammons and Mrs. W.B. Page, both Fayetteville. The article clearly states he was an FILI member, Ammons said. He had originally been buried in Burma. He was buried in Cross Creek Cemetery with full military honors on May 29, 1948. His body was later moved to Lafayette Memorial Park. Daughter DeMaurice Marie D. Tyler Taylor, who was 2 when her father was killed, of Greensboro, her son Charles F. Taylor Jr. of Wilmington, and daughter Kimberly Taylor Dickinson of Greensboro were on hand August 7, 2017, along with 6 nieces and nephews for a special presentation at the FILI Armory and Museum, where Major Bruce Dawes, commanding officer of the FILI circa 1993, presented a bouquet of roses and a certificate of gratitude in memory of the World War II veteran. It was kind of emotional, even though I never knew my dad, Taylor, 75, was saying Tuesday from her Greensboro home. I dreamed about him. It was just a pleasant experience, and Jim put so much time into it. And my children were there too. I was very touched, and I think my dad would have been very pleased and touched. FILI members Dawes says played taps to conclude the ceremony. Today you will find the name of Private Joseph Benjamin Tyler Jr. adorning the World War II Memorial Wall, along with his photograph at the FILI Armory and Museum at 210 Burgess Street in downtown Fayetteville.
Habitat grant to help with home repairs. The Fayetteville Area Habitat for Humanity received a $100,000 grant from the Simply East Fund at a ceremony Tuesday morning. The money will be used for a new Fayetteville Area Habitat for Humanity program called the Critical Home Repair Program that will repair residences for homeowners with household incomes of less than 60% of the median income in the city. Tammy Lawrence, the CEO of Fayettville Area Habitat for Humanity, said the nonprofit is excited to receive the grant to kickstart the new program. This grant provides the resources needed to do critical repairs to homes in an area that we have identified as a priority for neighborhood revitalization. There is no doubt that families living in homes in desperate need of repair will see a change in their community. We see these hard-working families as the backbone of the history of Fayetteville, and we are delighted that Simply East Fund has agreed to be one of them to help. For the past 2 years, Fayetteville Area Habitat for Humanity has been working to revitalize the B Street area where most residents live in low-income housing. The group has created a coalition of residents, business owners, faith leaders, city officials, and community volunteers to improve the lives of residents in the B Street neighborhood. Simply East Fund Director Kimberly Breeden said she grew up in Scotland County but came to Fayetteville a lot to go to the mall. The Simply East Fund is a nonprofit that works to improve the lives of economically challenged in eastern North Carolina by supporting local social services organizations through grants. Lawrence said the new Critical Home Repair Program will continue to help others with additional community funding after the $100,000 Simply East Fund grant is used. The homes selected for the program will be based on need, availability, or future resources and availability of volunteers. The program will help fund a number of housing repairs, including plumbing, electrical, and insulation issues. Our goal is to help everyone reclaim their home as a source of pride and dignity, Lawrence said. For more information on the program, go to Fayettville Habitat.
Yes. This is, where did it go? Here it is. This is the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service, United Way Partner Agency. We broadcast from the campus of Fayetteville State University, and our signal is carried by WNC Chapel Hill. As a nonprofit agency, we rely on public donations, and we request your charitable donations, and please keep SENCRRS in mind. Our post office box number is 35029, Fayetteville, North Carolina, 28303. If you have any questions or comments, please call us at 910-672-1600.
Ralph.
Toll-free number 1-844-709-5656. Your radio hosts today are Marty Baldwin and...
Ralph Walkie Robertson.
Okay, they gave you the obituaries.
This time we'll do the reading of the obituaries. I'd like to dedicate the reading of the obituaries to my dearly departed mom, Virginia Brantley Robertson, who spent her last 12 years non-ambulatory and unable to see and would have loved the radio reading service. And to Drew Wotani, who was a volunteer and recruited me into the service. And of course to Harold F. Rickman, who founded the radio reading service here at Fayetteville State University. William E. Sweet, 82 at Fayetteville, Adcock Funeral Home and Crematory. Walter L. Brown, 72 at Fayetteville, Colvin Funeral Home and Crematory. Yuchi Sakaki, 85 at Fayetteville, Fayetteville Cremation Services. Preston L. Moreau, 48 at Fayetteville, Wiseman Mortuary. Linda Johnson of Fayetteville, Jernigan Warren Funeral Home, and Joe Rogers, 54 of Fayetteville, Cunningham and Sons Mortuary. In the Cape Fear region, Keith B. Mangus, Sr., 53 of Lillington, O'Twin Peebles Phillips Funeral Home and Crematory, Lillington. Willie Jr. Bowe, Washington, 70 of Chadron, S&L Funeral Home, Fair Bluff. Stanley Tom Olbeck, 83 of Garland, Herring Funeral Care and Cremation. Ralph Hampson Sr., 75 of Sanford, Cunningham and Sons Mortuary. Melinda Hope Miller, 38 of Linden, Adcock Funeral Home and Crematory. Mary Falls Peel McDonald, 96 of Laurinburg, Richard Bowles Funeral Service. James C. Cameron, 64 of Lillington, Dafford Funeral Home. Angier. James Cleus Moore, 92 of Lumberton, S&L Funeral Home of Maxton. Helen Zoran Staderman. Helen Zoran Staderman, 91, passed to her eternal home on February 19th at 3:45 a.m. at Edgewood Place at the village of Brookwood in Burlington, North Carolina. In lieu of flowers, tax-deductible donations can be made in her memory to the North Carolina Right to Live Incorporated Education Fund, P.O. Box 9282, Greensboro. Services entrusted to Rogers and Brees Funeral Home, 500 Ramsey Street, Fayetteville, North Carolina. In Cumberland County, Stephen C. Borth, Stephen Callum Borth, 22, passed away on Friday, February 16th. A memorial service will be held at Crossroads Commons on Thursday, February 22nd at 2 p.m. Officiating pastors Michael Boast and Josh Goodman. A visitation will be held 1 hour prior to the service at the church. Services entrusted to Fayetteville Cremation Services. Olivia Parks. Miss Olivia Parks, 78 of Fayetteville, died Monday, February the 12th. Funeral Wednesday noon, Shaw Heights. Visitation Colvin Funeral Home Chapel, Tuesday 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Burial Sandhill State Veteran Cemetery, Colvin Funeral Home and Crematory. Elizabeth Thompson Watson. Elizabeth Thompson Watson, 85 of Fayetteville, died Monday, February the 19th. Private family service will be held, Rogers and Brees Funeral Home. Caitlin Jamora Killings. Caitlin Jamora Killings, infant of Fayetteville, died Wednesday, February 14th. Graveside Friday, noon, Cross Creek Cemetery, Jernigan Warren Funeral Home. William Ernest Sweet. William Ernest Sweet, 82 of Fayetteville, died Monday, February 19th. Funeral Friday, 1 p.m., Adcock Funeral Home Chapel. Visitation, Adcock Funeral Home. Thursday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., burial, Sandhill State Veteran Cemetery, Adcock Funeral Home and Crematory. Jason Dwight Wood Jr. Jason Dwight Wood Jr., 51 of Fayetteville, Died Saturday, February 17th. Funeral Thursday, 2 p.m. Rogers and Brees Funeral Home, Chapel. Visitation 12:45 to 1:45 p.m. prior to the service. Rogers and Brees Funeral Home. Thursday, burial, Cumberland Memorial Garden Cemetery. Rogers and Brees Funeral Home. Maryland Marable, Carthage. Maryland Marable, 65 of Carthage. Died Friday, February 16th. Funeral Thursday, 2 p.m. by Zion, AME Zion Church, Carthage. Visitation at funeral home. Wednesday, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Burial, Church Cemetery, Pew, and Smith Funeral Home, Carthage.
To continue with the obituaries, we have Region and Elsewhere. Carmela Inman of St. Paul's was born in Robeson County in 1921 and died February 16, 2018 at Glen Flora Assisted Living in Lumberton, completing her journey of 96 years. The time of visitation will be from 1 p.m. till 2:15 p.m. Thursday, February 22, 2018, with the funeral service to follow at 2:15 p.m. at the Life Center in St. Paul's, North Carolina. Service is entrusted to Bowles St. Paul's Funeral Home. William Ronald Mercer, Sr. of Laurinburg, 76, died Tuesday, February 6. Memorial, Sunday, 3 p.m., New Hope Baptist Church. Visitation following the service Sunday at the church. Burial, private interment at a later date. Richard Bowles Funeral Home. Mary E. Statton of Clarkton, 78 of 10759 College Street. Died Saturday, February 17. Funeral Thursday, 11 a.m. Piney Grove AME Zion Church, 540 Booker T. Washington School Road, Clarkton. Viewing F.W. Newton and Sons Mortuary, Elizabethtown, Wednesday, 2 p.m., 6 p.m. Burial, Clarkton Community Cemetery. F.W. Newton and Sons Mortuary. Lee Versia Taylor of Orem. First Sergeant Lee Versia Taylor, 75 of Orem, died Saturday, February 17. Funeral Friday, 1 p.m. Antioch Baptist Church. Visitation Hills Chapel, 302 North Main Street, Fairmont. Tuesday, 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. Burial, Antioch Baptist Church Cemetery, Hills Funeral Home. Archie Eugene Rice, Parkton, 69, died Sunday, February 18. Colvin Funeral Home, Lumberton. Ernest McMillan of Rayford, 94, died Thursday, February 15, 2018. Funeral Friday, 11 a.m. UPHC Rocky Run, 5325 Highway 17 South, New Bern. Burial, Greenleaf Memorial Park, New Bern, Oscars Mortuary. Susan McKeithen Lennon of Bladenboro, 63, died Monday, February 19, 2018. Graveside, Thursday, 3 p.m., Lewis Cemetery, Bladen Gaskins Funeral Home. DeVay Jorgensen Row, Cameron, 53, died Saturday, February 17. Services are planned for a later date. Cox Memorial Funeral Home in Crimtory in Vass. And I will now read the Billy Graham article with sadness, because Billy Graham died perhaps last night. He was 99 years old, would have been 100 in the fall. And this is the how to send a condolence of any kind. Can write to Reverend Graham at the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association, number 1 Billy Graham Parkway, Charlotte, North Carolina, 28201 or call 877-2-GRAM. The website for the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association is at billygraham.org.Tribune Media Services. That would be phoning and texting or sending your message or writing to give your condolences for the death of Billy Graham. Question. Recently my sister and I tracked down our father who abandoned us and the rest of our family almost 40 years ago. But when we contacted him by mail, he let it be known that he didn't want anything to do with us. This really hurt us. How can anyone be so heartless? Mrs. WX. Only your father knows why he feels this way, and he might not really know. Our emotions and motives can be very complex, and we end up doing things that aren't even logical or in our best interest. Perhaps this is the case with him. I can't help but wonder, however, if deep in his soul he feels guilty over what he did so many years ago, and he simply won't face his failure. Or perhaps he's too involved in his present life and doesn't want to get involved with anything or anyone from his past. Or again, he may be very self-centered and he doesn't want to get involved with anything that doesn't seem to be to his advantage. Whatever his reason, you may have to accept the fact that he's probably not going to change. At the same time, I hope you'll do whatever you can to keep contact and let him know you care. A birthday card, an occasional email, update about your family, and so forth. Pray for him also. In spite of the past, he's still your father, and God still loves him. The Bible says, make every effort to live in peace with everyone. Most of all, never forget that even when others fail us, God never does. He is our loving Heavenly Father, and He will never let us down. Put your faith and trust in Christ, and thank Him. I have no idea whether this will be the last of the Billy Graham column in the Fayettville paper, but if you have enjoyed his columns during the years, call the newspaper and inquire.
Dear Abby, I have a son from a previous relationship and have been in a relationship with a man I'll call Brian for a year. Not long ago, Brian confided to me that he and his brother had been molested by a female relative. I don't know her. I have only met his parents. This female relative has been asking about my son on social media because she has seen him in pictures with Brian's family. I want to tell her to back off, but so far I have held off. I'm afraid if I do, I will cause problems because his parents don't know what I know. My protective instinct has become very alert. I may be wrong, but I feel like she sees my son as a future target. What should I do? Mama Bear. Dear Mama Bear, listen to your protective instinct. Talk with Brian and tell him the woman's questions are of concern to you, that you don't want her to have any information about or contact with your child. And then make sure your wishes are respected. If she receives any messages back off, it should come from him, not you. Dear Abby, on behalf of all new moms, please help me with this question. Why does every woman in the world, it seems, feel entitled to ask new moms if they're breastfeeding their babies? How should new moms respond politely to this question? If you say yes, you may or may not be lying. Or if you say no, you will be judged. If you give an evasive answer, people will assume you are not, and you will be held as well. It seems to me that all substances excreted from the body should be off limits in social situations. My business in Texas. Dear my business, judgmental people can get you only if you allow it. While there are valid reasons why babies should be breastfed, it isn't always possible, and women should not be quizzed by strangers about whether they are. My mother used to advise readers who were put off by prying questions to say, if you will forgive me for not answering that question, I'll forgive you for asking. Even though you asked for a polite retort, in a situation like this, my response would be, if that were any of your business, you would already know the answer. Ha ha ha. Dear Abby, a couple years ago, when I moved to a home with more privacy than our previous home, my husband decided to walk around naked all the time. It's not that I'm a prude, but I don't find his furry 60-year-old body attractive in broad daylight. Quite the opposite, in fact. I've asked him many times to please put something on, and he either ignores me or gets mad. I avert my eyes when he's sashaying by me. Is there anything else I can do to reason with him? Seen enough already. Dear, seen enough. Probably not. Since you can't change him, why not join him one day a week? You have nothing to lose but your clothes, and it might solve the problem.
Another good answer to inappropriate questions is, why do you ask? Because people will ask you the most inappropriate questions. Why do you ask? Strangers almost. And you might point that out, that you are not an immediate friend of the person. Here is the horoscope today by Stella Wilder on Wednesday, February 21st, 2018. Born today, you are one of those people who's fortunate enough, or unfortunate, as the case may be, to be in the right place at the right time again and again through life. Now you may be asking how this could ever be unfortunate, but not everything you are present for is a positive thing, is it? Pisces, you may be doing more than your job today, but by taking over someone else's, you will make sure that it meets your high standards. Aries, your attitude is all that stands between you and disaster today. How you see the world and judge your actions make the difference. Taurus, you aren't likely to get as far today as you had hoped, but if you have to stop midway, you can make use of time available to you. Gemini, you must tend to domestic affairs before anything else can get done today. Focus on someone who is not in sync with anyone else. Cancer, you may discover a mess has been left for you to clean up, but aren't in this alone, and many are available to help you. Leo, you'll have cause to remember some events from your past. Before the day is over, you'll be inspired to improve upon a past success. Virgo, you may have to send the same message twice or even 3 times today to be sure that it winds up in the proper hands. Libra, you're in the middle of something that you cannot fully explain, but others are willing to give you the benefit of the doubt. Scorpio, you don't want to leave anything undone today that should be completed with time to spare. You must be sure to tend to things in order. Sagittarius, you're likely to encounter someone who presents you with a challenge that both intrigues you and frightens you. You are already. Capricorn, you'll want to get everything done and out of the way today before you immerse yourself in a personal issue that demands attention. I wonder if that means I'm supposed to clean up the den. Aquarius, you are in a really good space today and can see almost everything in the proper light. There is little reason for a slowdown right now. And that's your horoscope for today.
Gridiron great. Herschel Walker shares his story with Fort Bragg troops. Herschel Walker was one of the most well-known football players in the world. A 3-time All-American and Heisman Trophy winner at the University of Georgia and 2-time Pro Bowler in the National Football League. But near the end of his 15-year professional career, as Walker steered his Mini Cooper down a Texas highway with a gun at his side, he didn't recognize himself behind the wheel. Walker, who overcame obesity and a speech impediment to become one of the greatest football players of all time, told a group of Fort Bragg soldiers on Tuesday that he believed he was going to kill a man. This man, in Walker's eyes, had disrespected him. Hired to deliver a car from Philadelphia to Walker's home in Irving, Texas, the man had missed several deadlines and delivered the car instead to a nearby Arlington. As Walker angrily drove, voices in his head began to argue. "People are always disrespecting you," one boy said. "Your parents didn't raise you like this," said another. "I thought I was losing my mind," Walker recalled. "I thought I was going crazy." For the rest of the drive, the NFL star prayed. When he reached his destination, the gun stayed in his holster. But later that day, speaking to his then wife, Walker said he told her that something was wrong. She agreed. For months, his wife said she had been trying to talk to Walker. He didn't listen, and sometimes he scared her. It was a wake-up call. Walker told soldiers at the end of the day spent on Fort Bragg, and it was the first time Walker felt fear since he was in the 8th grade at a small school in Wrightsville, Georgia. At Pope Theater, Walker shared a story of his life that not many have heard. "Everyone has heard the glory of Herschel Walker," he said, "but they haven't heard the whole story of Herschel Walker. It's a story that began with a large boy with a bad stutter, a boy who teachers would make sit in the corner of a classroom, a boy who they said was special and who had classmates called retarded. For years, I never went to recess. I never spoke in class," Walker said. But on the last day of school in the 8th grade, Walker braved the outdoors. He described himself walking outside like a cat, unsure of his surroundings. There, a classmate pummeled him. The man who would become arguably the best college football player of all time went home crying. But that was also the day that Walker decided it was all going to end. He began a regimen of push-ups and sit-ups. He did chin-ups while hanging from a tree in the backyard. Each day, Walker sat in front of a mirror and read out loud to himself, determined to defeat the stutter that others picked on him for. When Walker returned to school, he was the fastest kid in his class. He became the star of the football team, leading them to a state championship in his senior year. He became his class valedictorian. Wow. At Georgia, he was a 3-time finalist for the Heisman before winning the trophy as a nation's best college football player in his junior year. He helped lead the team to a national championship in his freshman year. From there, Walker played professional football, first in the United States Football League, where he played for the New Jersey Generals, and later in the NFL for the Dallas Cowboys, Minnesota Vikings, Philadelphia Eagles, and New York Giants. It was in Texas after returning to Dallas at the end of his NFL career that Walker sought help after his rage-filled drive down the Texas highway. After seeking spiritual help, he was urged to get medical care, and Walker realized he hadn't felt pain or pride since that day he was beat up in the 8th grade. Soon Walker was checked into a behavioral health hospital in California. He was diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder, a condition where a person's identity is fragmented into 2 or more distinct personality states. Walker didn't know what to think, but he knew his wife thought that he could kill her one day. And if he was honest with himself, Walker said he could admit that he thought it might happen too. On Fort Bragg, as Walker met with soldiers from the 20th Engineer Brigade and other units, climbed into the back of vehicles used to clear roads or improvise explosive devices, and toured the site where heavy equipment were rigged to be dropped from planes. He shared a message of thanks for those who serve their country. "You guys are true heroes," he said. "There's no Superman, Batman, or Hulk. There's you. God bless you." Walker spoke at length about his college and NFL careers. He spoke of his deep faith, of his time on an Olympic bobsled team, and his turn as a professional mixed martial arts fighter. He said he's still faster than any of today's NFL running backs. With his message of thanks, Walker also shared his struggle. He urged troops and their family members to seek out help if needed, or to urge others to get help they may need. This is a message he has shared with service members since 2008. Working with Universal Health Services Patriot Support Program and more than 150 visits to military installations, Walker has spoken to more than 150,000 troops. "If you're suffering from anything, don't be ashamed to get help," he said. There's no shame in asking for help. If I had not gone to get help when I did, Herschel Walker might not be here right now.
That's quite a story, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I didn't
And a
realize.
successful story.
Valedictorian of the senior class. Wow.
He had a lot of drive, didn't he?
I've always liked Herschel Walker, but now I like him more.
Yes. Well, you have to respect someone who's been through all that and came out on top of it. Cheers and jeers. Cheers to First Call Restoration and Dwayne Lee at Allstate. When we had flooding on our first floor, Agent Dwayne Lee responded immediately. Then someone from First Call Restoration was here the next morning to assess the situation. What a great group of people to work with. They treat your belongings as if they were your own. And, they treat your belongings as if they were their own, and they make a bad situation almost enjoyable. Thank you, Dwayne, Tim, and all of the members of the crew that helped us, including Johnny, Kenny, Jason, Jill, Cheryl, and anyone whose name I forgot. Good job. And this is Yvonne Saunders of Fayetteville. You can send cheers and jeers or vent a bad experience. Submit your cheer or jeer to cheersandjeers at Fayettville Observer at fayobserver.com or call 486-3590. Include your full name, your hometown and phone number. Limit your item to 125 words. To correct or cancel a submission, call 609-0651. Cheers and Jeers are published as space permits, and here's an article about West African style stew hits the sweet spot. And here's West African peanut stew with chicken. I am on a constant quest for exciting ways to hit what I call the sweet spot, where delicious and healthy meat. Happily, there are endless such discoveries to be made by exploring cuisines from around the globe, and it's doubly nice when their ingredients are easily accessible as they are for this wonderful West African-inspired one-pot meal. The stew's distinctive taste comes from its unexpected combination of familiar flavors: peanut butter, which provides a creamy, toasty richness, and a warm, earthy spice blend of cumin, coriander, turmeric, and cinnamon. These healthful seasonings add richness, nutrition, and depth to the colorful medley of sweet potatoes, tomato, bell pepper, and collard greens that is studded with plump chunks of chicken breast. If you're feeling a little bored with your health-conscious eating routine, this sumptuously dissatisfying dish is sure to shake things up. And
Shulkin intends to stay in VA post with Trump support. Campaigning to keep his job, Veterans Affairs Secretary David Shulkin said Tuesday he had no intention of quitting despite blistering findings of travel abuses connected to his 11-day trip to Europe. He issued an extraordinary warning to VA staff rebelling against him. Get back in line or get out. Speaking at the Tuesday meeting at the White House, Shulkin told the Associated Press that White House Chief of Staff John Kelly affirmed he still had the trust of President Donald Trump. Reports have swirled in recent days of White House officials looking to oust Shulkin for not hewing more closely to the Trump agenda, as well as VA press officials refusing to serve him. Shulkin, the former VA Undersecretary of Health in the Obama administration, denied he was straying off course. A VA Inspector General report last week found that Shulkin had improperly accepted Wimbledon tennis tickets, and his staff lied that he was getting an award in order to justify his wife accompanying him at taxpayers' expense. An 11-day European trip in July that mixed business and sightseeing. There's no doubt, and the Secretary said, indicated that changes may be in store at the VA. Shulkin added, anyone that is not able to get on board with that is not going to be able to remain at VA. Trump spokeswoman Sarah Huckabee Sanders told at a briefing Tuesday that she had no reason to believe Shulkin's job was in danger. The somebody no longer has the confidence of the president, you guys will know, she said. Their statements come as several major veterans organizations have rallied behind Shulkin, citing concerns over his European travel, but declaring him the best person to lead the VA at a time of major change. The department is seeking to expand private care options for veterans at government expense, a Trump campaign priority that has raised some concerns among veteran groups of undue privatization. While we were disappointed to learn of the recent issue with the Secretary of Travel, we believe that the current controversy surrounding Shulkin is part of a larger effort to remove him and install others who would take steps to privatize the services provided to our nation's heroes by the VA, said American Legion National Commander Denise H. Rohan in a statement.
Oh, this is the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service, a United Way partner agency. We broadcast from the campus of Fayetteville State University, and our signal is carried by WUNC Chapel Hill. As a non-profit agency, we rely on public donations. We request your support to keep our services. When making charitable donations, please keep the SENCRRS in mind. Our post office box number is 35029, Fayetteville, North Carolina, 28303. If you have any questions or comments, please call us at 910-672-1600 or our toll-free number, 1-847-009-5656. Your radio hosts today are Marty Baldwin,
Ralph Walkie Robertson,
and we're proud to serve you today. And here is an article about White House Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders speaking during the daily news briefing at the White House Tuesday in Washington. The Russians are going to try it again. Even President Donald Trump's intelligence chiefs say so. But with congressional primaries just 2 weeks away, the U.S. has done little to aggressively combat the kinds of Russian election meddling that was recently unmasked in federal court. Special counsel Robert Mueller's surprise indictment last week in his wide-ranging Russia investigation sounded a fresh alarm to the U.S. government, social media companies, and state election officials who are readying for the 2018 midterms. Here's what's being done or not in the wake of Mueller's revelations in Congress. Mueller's indictment charged 13 Russian individuals and 3 Russian companies in a plot to interfere in the 2016 presidential election through a social media propaganda effort that included online ad purchases using U.S. aliases and politicking on U.S. soil. Congressional committees held hearings on the social media attacks last fall, but legislation to require technology companies to enhance openness for online political ads has stalled amid GOP concerns of overregulation. None of the congressional committees investigating the interference, both the social media efforts and attempted Russian hacking of state election systems, have yet proposed policy changes to prevent it in the future. Senate Intelligence Committee Chairman Richard Burr, North Carolina, has said he wants to issue a report on security findings and legislative recommendations before the primaries begin, but it's unclear if the panel will do so before Texas March 5 voting. Leaders of the House Intelligence Committee have also said they will issue a report with recommendations on how to prevent foreign interference. But the Republican-led panel has been more focused in recent weeks on whether the FBI conspired against Trump. Similarly, the White House has sent few signals on what should be done to combat the meddling as voters try to make sense of how it might affect them. Trump has said little on the severity of the threat or how it could be overcome, instead often focusing on whether he is the target of Mueller's investigation or insisting that any meddling would not have changed the results of the election. Apparently it didn't. While House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders defended Trump on Tuesday, saying the president hasn't said that Russia did not meddle. What he's saying is it didn't have an impact, and it certainly wasn't with help from the Trump campaign. Top Trump officials have been more open and firm in saying Russia interfered and needs to be stopped. But what might be happening behind the scenes is unclear. In a hearing on global threats this month, National Intelligence Director Dan Coats said, "There should be no doubt that Russia perceives that its past efforts have been unsuccessful and views the 2018 midterm U.S. elections a potential target for Russian interference operations." He said, "We are behind the curve in coming to a policy to penalize or stop those who interfere." Trump has mixed signals on sanctions approved by Congress on Russian entities in the wake of the interference. He signed the legislation, but his administration has bucked a congressional deadline to impose the sanctions. The states' efforts to increase election security have been slow among tensions between the federal government and the states. The Department of Homeland Security offered assistance to state and local election officials after Russian agents targeted election systems in 21 states ahead of the 2016 general election. But records show only 14 states have requested risk assessments, and 30 have asked for remote cyber scans of their networks. Some states and local officials have expressed concerns about Homeland Security efforts to increase communications and cooperations with states about election systems. They have complained that it took the federal government nearly a year to inform them whether their states had been targeted by Russian hackers. The way the government is structured with locals, states, and the federal government, it works against us a little bit in terms of trying to solve this problem quickly, said Noah Prates, elections director for Cook County, Illinois. He's been working with federal officials to help improve communication channels. Well, I was at a meeting last night listening to the sad news about North Carolina, about the people being bussed by the carload or busload. People who cannot say their own name are being bussed and are helped to vote. A lot of dead people voting. So North Carolina is really filled with corruption in the voting system. Most of the counties apparently have more people voting in the county than live in the county, which is highly irregular and maybe just a wee bit suspect.
Netanyahu confident ID as scandals mount. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, already reeling from a damaging police report into alleged corruption, faced yet another scandal Tuesday with allegations that a longtime confidant attempted to bribe a judge in exchange for dropping a corruption case against the Israeli leader's wife. Netanyahu quickly denounced the allegations, but they presented an embarrassing new headache for him as a growing list of members of his inner circle gets swept up in scandals. The latest case surrounds Nir Hifrit, a longtime media advisor of Netanyahu and his family. Hifrit is suspected of suggesting through a middleman to Judge Hilla Gertzel in 2015 that she could be appointed Attorney General if she dismissed a pending case against Sarah Netanyahu's excessive household spending. Hepsi and the middleman are being held in police custody. The offer never materialized, and Israel's current Attorney General recommended last fall indicting Mrs. Netanyahu in the case. But Israeli media, including columnist Ben Caspit, who broke the story, said the judge was shocked by the offer. Police says Tuesday she had given testimony as part of their investigation. The Haaretz Daily said Gertzel had spoken about the incident at the time to her colleague Esther Hyatt, who is now Supreme Court's Chief Justice. Media reports said that Hyatt is expected to be questioned by police. Netanyahu said the latest suspicions were a continuation of a wider media witch hunt against him and his family. I never consulted Nir Herzog on the matter, he said. Never proposed anything to me on the issue. And you know what? I don't believe that he suggested this possibility with anyone. Netanyahu said in a statement posted on Facebook on Tuesday. Earlier on Tuesday, Herzog was identified as a central suspect in another case. Police says Herzog and Solomon Fayettville, the former director of the communications ministry under Netanyahu, are suspected of promoting regulation worth hundreds of millions of dollars to Israel's telecom company. In return, popular news site Walla allegedly provided favorable coverage of Netanyahu and his family. Bezek's controlling shareholder, Shaul Elovich, is also in custody, along with his wife, son, and other top Bezek executives. Former journalists for the Walla news site have attested to being pressured to refrain from negative reporting of Netanyahu. The Prime Minister, who held the communications portfolio until last year, has not yet been named as a suspect in either this week's cases, though he soon may be questioned.
All charges dropped in statue case. Durham. A prosecutor gave up Tuesday trying to prosecute people charged with yanking a Confederate monument off its base after last summer's white supremacist protests in Charlottesville, Virginia. I don't know how you can destroy property and not be charged. I don't care what the property is. Durham District Attorney Roger Eccles' decision came a day after a judge dismissed criminal charges against 2 defendants and found a third not guilty. Trials for 5 others on misdemeanor charges were to be held later, but were likely to be plagued by problems identifying protesters on video. For my office to continue to take these cases to trial based on the same evidence would be a misuse of state resources, Eccles said, according to local news outlets. For that reason, I will dismiss the remaining charges against the remaining defendants. The toppling of the statue in front of the Durham County government building helped thrust North Carolina into a national debate on Confederate monuments in the aftermath of the Charlottesville protests that left one counter-demonstrator dead. I wonder if the guy who killed the woman is going to be... The Virginia demonstrations were triggered by a dispute over another Confederate monument there. North Carolina is among a handful of southern states with the most Confederate monuments. It also has a law preventing local officials from removing the statues. 12 people were initially charged with felony rioting and misdemeanors, including defacing a public building or monument after the August 14 demonstration. Eccles later decided to not pursue the felony charges and then drop charges against the 3 defendants for insufficient evidence. I'll bet they've got video of people who destroyed the property, but...
When will we defend ourselves from Russia? On Friday, Special Counsel Robert Mueller indicted 13 Russians who are accused of helping orchestrate the greatest foreign threat to U.S. democracy in modern history. In his first year in office, President Donald Trump incorrectly called Russia's attack on America's democracy a hoax 44 times. He tweeted that Russia talk is fake news put out by the Dems. The indictment to document blows up such absurd myths once and for all. It connects names with dates and events, describes Russian organized real-world rallies that Americans attended, and chronicles stolen identities and nefarious bank transfers. Americans of all political stripes must see this charging document as a wake-up call. We must not let partisan divides between Republicans and Democrats blind us to the threat, nor blind us to inaction. We are in a fight to save our democracy from foreign attacks, and currently we are doing absolutely nothing to fight back. Mueller's indictment outlines a sophisticated operation with three primary goals: to help elect Donald Trump as President of the United States, to undermine faith in our democratic institutions, and to stoke polarization by turning Americans against one another. Each of these goals shares a common overreach aim: to weaken the United States by sowing chaos and division in ways that benefit Russia. According to the federal charges, Russians organized pro-Trump rallies. Their operatives were directed to use any opportunity to criticize Hillary Clinton on social media. They communicated with unwitting members of the Trump campaign and got them to spread Russia-created content. They worked to spread lies about voter fraud around the same time that Trump began spreading those lies himself. And they even paid Americans to attend pro-Trump rallies, including one who was paid to attend a rally dressed up as Clinton in a prison uniform. Millions of people online and offline had interactions with people they believed to be Americans who were actually Russians. Bots created by them. We will never know for sure whether the Kremlin's influence campaign proved decisive in a close election decided by roughly 80,000 voters across 3 states. But that's beside the point. We don't absolve attempted murder just because the victim happens to survive. But to suggest, as many in Trump world do, that not a single American voter was swayed by this 3-year-long, carefully orchestrated, wide-reaching information warfare campaign is a dangerous fantasy because it downplays the menace that this new kind of threat poses to our democratic system. If you successfully attack the democratic system, you attack the mechanism by which every other decision is made, from tax policy to nuclear weapons. Imagine Pearl Harbor, except that the proverbial flames could engulf our ability to make our own free-thinking democratic choices for years. Trump and his ardent supporters, of course, are eager to downplay the threat. Because the Russians tried to help Trump win, they want to pretend it was minor, unimportant, and unworthy of a response. That helps explain why Trump failed to impose sanctions that Congress passed with overwhelming bipartisan support. Why he bizarrely proposed setting up a joint cybersecurity task force with the same government that conducted a major cyber attack against the United States, and why he keeps acting as Russian President Vladimir Putin's chief apologist in the West. We cannot afford to view foreign attacks on U.S. democracy through a partisan lens. U.S. intelligence leaders warned last week that the Kremlin's operations continue today. It's striking that the indictment says the Russian operatives stoked polarization by backing left-wing political events after Trump was elected, hoping to drive a wedge between Americans. Russia benefits if American society tears itself apart, holding rallies to attack one another rather than rallying together to protect democracy from foreign attacks. Trump administration's strategy of defending the Kremlin rather than defending American democracy has sent a clear signal to Moscow. Putin has no reason to stop and every reason to get more aggressive. The Russians' last operations were effective and solicited no meaningful consequences. By enabling Putin rather than deterring him, Trump has effectively rolled up the digital red carpet for more information, warfare, in the upcoming midterm elections. Finally, it's worth noting that the Mueller indictment of 13 Russians does not in any way resolve the question of whether the Trump campaign colluded with Russia or any aspects of Mueller's investigation related to obstruction of justice. What it does make clear is that Russia wants to undermine American democracy. We are letting Russia do so. It's time not only to fight back, but also to find common ground, uniting at least on this issue to protect the democratic values and democratic system that most of us cherish before it's too late.
State briefs. High Court denies North Carolina's claim on Yadkin dams. The U.S. Supreme Court is ending the state's fight for a say in the operations and ownership of 4 hydroelectric dams under the theory the state has owned the riverbed since statehood and the country's independence. The court on Tuesday denied North Carolina's effort to reverse lower federal courts in a 5-year legal fight over water rights and electricity revenues the dams generated. North Carolina argued the public benefits promised when Alcoa Corporation built the 4 Yadkin River dams to power an aluminum smelter ended when the company closed the plant in 2007. Alcoa sold the dams to Cube Hydro. Rodanthe. The State Transportation Department has dedicated a bridge along the Outer Banks to a U.S. Coast Guard captain who went from being a slave to the first African American to command a life-saving station. The state dedicated the Pea Island Interim Bridge as Captain Richard Etheridge Bridge in a ceremony Tuesday at the Rodanthe Waves Salvo Community Building. The bridge replaced the temporary metal bridge that spanned a breach opened during Hurricane Irene in 2011 along North Carolina Highway 12. Etheridge became the leader of the Pea Island Life-Saving Station and all African American unit credited with saving many lives. The Coast Guard awarded Etheridge and his crew a medal for the rescue of those aboard the E.S. Newman during a hurricane in 1896.
GOP candidates Trump dilemma. Unlike this year's U.S. Senate races, which are mainly being fought in Trump-friendly states, many of the most contested House electoral battles are for Republican-held seats in more Democratic-leaning places. That enhances the odds of Democrats winning control of the House and presents a dilemma for Republican incumbents. Do they strike some distance from President Donald Trump or continue to march in lockstep with him in Congress? But don't look for any mass Republican defections, even if the probe of any Trump ties to Russia escalates. Off-year elections usually are about voter intensity. In dozens of contests over the past year since Trump was elected, the energy has been with Democrats. Most recently, the Democrat won by 7 points in a pro-Trump, pro-Republican state legislative district in Sarasota, Florida. The hopefully dozens of embattled congressional Republicans is that by November their base will get energized. Those voters remain strongly supportive of Trump, while the general electorate, despite some recent improvement in the president's standing, is far less so. If Republican candidates in blue districts and states run away from Trump, some of the GOP base will stay home. If they wrap themselves around him, they risk energizing Democrats and alienating independents. It's not an easy choice. Buckle up your seatbelts, pull up your big boy pants. Leading Republican pollster Neil Newhouse advises them, this is going to be a tough election. A look at Republican-held seats that are the chief Democratic targets, over half of them in states or districts that voted for Hillary Clinton, illustrates the divide on how to walk the tightrope. Even most of those taking issue with Trump are doing it very selectively. Predictably, a dozen Republican incumbents from New Jersey, New York, and California voted against a tax cut bill that socked it to those states by eliminating the federal tax deduction for state and local taxes. On immigration, there are dozens of House Republicans opposing Trump's hard line, joining Texas' Will Hurd and California's Jeff Denham, two of the most endangered congressional incumbents. New York Representative John Faso from an upstate New York district that went for Trump but had gone for Barack Obama 4 years earlier, opposed the president on the tax bill and immigration.
And today I will have time to read a couple of things from the Aldi.
Yeah, just read it and I'll put you one at a time.
Okay, red grapes, 99 cents a pound from Aldi. Aldi, 39 cents each for avocados. You can't get a better bargain than that. $2.49 for a 3-pound bag of California mandarins. $1.99 for assorted multi-pack peppers, 3 per pack in 3 different colors. $1.29 for a pound package of kiwi, and $1.79 per pint for blueberries. You can get boneless pork butt roast for $1.49 a pound. Fresh ground bison, anyone? $7.99 a pound. Certified organic Atlantic salmon, $12.99. And something I give up. I don't know what that is. Also, organic eggs, $3.49, but the other eggs are about 89 cents or cheaper. Mini kitchen objects, $2.99 for the Aldi hyacinth in a glass vase, and $1.49 for Aunt Maple's buttermilk pancake mix. And that's all I'll read from Aldi's, I think, except on the back page we have fresh Atlantic salmon for $7.69 per pound. Atlantic salmon with Mediterranean herbs, $8.69. Fresh fresh tilapia at $6.49. And then there's, well, this is a wonderful buy, specially selected basmati rice, white or brown, for 32 ounces. That's a fantastic buy. Sea Queen Jumbo Easy Peel Raw Shrimp, $5.49. And Season's Choice Extra Fine Green Beans for Prince Edward Medley, and for $1.39. Season's Choice Steamable Baby Brussels Sprouts for $1.09 per bag. That would be 12 ounces. Okay, Ralph?
This concludes our broadcast of the Fayettville Observer. Your radio hosts have been
Marty Baldwin
and Ralph Walkie Robertson. Tune in this afternoon at 2 p.m. for the articles from the Hope Mill Sandspur and the Fort Bragg Light. At 4 p.m. you can listen to Off the Bookshelf. Today's Fayettville Observer will be rebroadcast tonight at 9 p.m. We now join the Raleigh Network for additional programming. Thank you for tuning us in. We've enjoyed being with you this morning. Have a wonderful day.
The show is also available as a podcast at our website, triangleradioreadingservice.com. Reminisce will take you back in time with reader stories of their lives and memories. Memories of current events, the music, radio programs, funny and embarrassing moments.
See you later, Marty.
Can we count this as our good deed of the day?
Yes.
Okay, good.
This is our good deed of the day, Marty.
All right.
Let me snap out here.
I'm sorry, this chair is such a big one, and it doesn't move.
Good afternoon, this is the Triangle Radio Reading Service. Today is Wednesday, February 21st. Welcome to our afternoon programs. Your readers are Janet Hoffman and Anna Kogal. Today we will be reading from Sports, the Life section of the News and Observer,
I'm trying to come out of here, so just give me a minute.
Washington Daily, Weekly Press,
The what?
Jacksonville Daily, and the Public News.
Oh, okay.
All articles are read as printed. The content of this program is intended for people who are blind and print impaired. Today's noon broadcast is generously underwritten by Christine and Greg Tenser. At 1:30, our featured program will be R&R, Resource and Recreation. We will now begin with sports from the News and Observer. Janet?
And we'll go right to the Olympics, ice dancing. And I hope I can pronounce her name correctly. In the sensual sport, Shibutanis portray passion of a different kind. The night before they won their first Olympic medal, Alex and Maya Shibutani were frustrated. They skated what they believed to be their best short dance of all time, but weren't scored like it. They finished 2/100ths of a point out of the medal position, but 5 points out of gold medal position. None of it felt right. But as they wrestled with pride in their skate, the pressure of the moment, and frustration with their scores, 23-year-old Maya pulled out her computer and found some old home videos. We started watching these old family videos we have of us when we were little kids off the ice, just dancing together, her older brother said, before trailing off into tears. The Sibs, who won bronze, are the second set of siblings to win an Olympic ice dance medal, first in more than 25 years. Over the years, they've heard the comments from those who don't understand, or even the concerns of those inside the sport who do. Can siblings really succeed in this sport? Should they? Aren't they limited from the steamier showings of those who tend to climb the podium? And in those moments of close physical proximity and high emotional intensity, is something just off? With ice dance, it's just generally grouped into, oh, it's romantic, oh, it's sensual. That's not fair to ice dance. You're probably hurting ice dance's feelings, Alex Shibutani said. Ice dance wants to be whatever it can be. We're all put here to hopefully find something that we're passionate about and hopefully connect in some way to the people around us. We found ice dance. We're siblings. We're doing it the way we know how to do it. Alex and Maya grew sterner as questions along that line continued. No, they've never had to ditch a program because it was too romantic and therefore too awkward. No, these programs do not have to be about romantic passion. They can be about different kinds of passion too. Think of all the different stories there are, or types of dance, or different types of anything, Maya Shibutani said. Just because we didn't see a team that we could directly look up to when we first started skating, doesn't mean it's not possible. We worked really hard. We found our way. We did it. Hopefully, for other teams coming up after us, if they're brother and sister, if they're Asian, they'll believe it's actually possible. The Shibutanis are the first Asian Americans to medal in Olympic ice dance, too. They are not the norm in this sport, which used to be dominated by classic European couples, and, since Vancouver, by all white couples from North America, too. Over and over these last few weeks, questions about race and the nature of their partnership lead the siblings to answer for things they cannot change. And they do answer. They might not always be happy to do so, but they realize that succeeding despite lacking similar role models often means becoming some yourselves. If you're sitting through an event full of ice dance teams and seeing the same old story over and over again, that's not good for the growth of the sport. That's not entertaining for the viewers at home, Alex Shibutani said. Having a different point of view, which we naturally bring because we are coming from a different place, is something that we've embraced. But that different point of view, that different journey, costs them, or so the Shibutanis believe. They tried not to say it outright, dancing around the point for nearly 10 minutes Tuesday, as they addressed their race and relationship. Then Alex broke. The adversity we mention is, you can't control the marks you get in this sport. You try to learn the rules. You do your very best, he said. But we have had a lot of results where we haven't been satisfied, or we've been told we should be receiving more. Monday's short dance was, at least in their minds, one of those moments. It didn't matter in the end, when frustration mounted, when doubts rose, and when the moment got big, they withstood the pressure when so many others couldn't. The family bond we have is the strength that no other team in this field has. It sets us apart, Alex Shibutani said. For all the people who think it's a deficit, we've made it our strength.
I saw that. It was beautiful. Interesting questions. Well, we really kind of narrow this down to back into Raleigh. 25 years ago, an ailing Jim Valvano returned to Reynolds Coliseum. Every seat in Reynolds Coliseum was filled an hour before game time. The attraction was more than the advertised 10th anniversary celebration of the 1983 NCAA championship, more than the contest that followed against Duke. Fans and professional onlookers came to see the color analyst for the ABC telecast. The restless architect of that 83 title, the man who'd been run off the NC State campus amidst a cloud of scandal, acrimony, and ambiguity. They'd come to see Jim Valvano. It was public knowledge the ex-coach, gone from state for 3 years, had bone cancer. And while no one knew his fate that afternoon, 25 years ago, Wednesday, Valvano's future appeared grim, a truth underlined by his pale skin and pained gait. The young upstart who arrived in the Triangle in 1980 alongside Duke's Mike Krzyzewski and largely matched him competitive step for step, who glibly vowed to beat North Carolina's Dean Smith by outliving him, was only 46, but looked spent. Life's candle burned to a nub. He would be dead 2 months later. Valvano's appearance on the court, the last speaker on the program, elicited a great ovation. He'd missed the prior 2 weeks of broadcast assignments, raising doubt he could participate. Friends saw Valvano draw strength from the crowd's reaction, hardly a given considering the NCAA probation and academic and recruiting shortcomings on his watch that had elicited widespread criticism. What's more, Valvano's peripatetic post-championship commercial activities, from in-season TV basketball commentator to clothing line purveyor, corporate speaker to cookbook author to host of his own radio show, made him a right symbol of excess in college sports. Sometimes Valvano appeared to want to do everything, be everything, eternally in search of a new challenge. While outside opinion, especially the hometown editorial page, saw a man unfairly exploiting his position at a public university for personal gain, Valvano explained he was merely following past practice and refused to remain, quote, one-dimensional. In those days, before big-time sports made coaching an even bigger bucks occupation, Valvano reportedly derived at least 10 times his NC State salary from his entrepreneurial ventures. His actions and the program's missteps caused the university system to ban him and all coaches from a dual supervisory role as athletic director, a conflict of interest Valvano amply illustrated. But those foibles didn't stop fans from embracing the Rutgers English major with the black hair and gap-toothed grin. Valvano was a breath of fresh air in a profession taken too seriously and suffused with petty antagonisms. The perspective on the game that I was taught since I was a kid is that the most important thing is participation, the son of a high school coach confided. Play it all out, give it all you've got, and then, when it's over, smile and enjoy the people you competed with and against. From his arrival in Raleigh, Valvano enjoyed engaging with fans. He quoted sages from Shakespeare to the Vinces, Lombardi, and Scully. Key to his early acceptance, long before ethnic diversity transformed the region, he played his Italian heritage and New York roots for laughs. Humor was his constant companion. Valvano described one on-court maneuver as, quote, the triple cadenza play with the unbalanced coach. He suggested an experimental shot clock be shortened about 1.5 feet. After a game, he exactingly imitated UNC's big men, arms raised, stiffly jumping up and down in a zone. He brought extra NC State athletes to Cameron Indoor Stadium and positioned them behind the visitors' bench. People think that I brought 15 football players to Duke because I was concerned about the safety of my players, he teased. That's not true. I was concerned about my safety. Smith and Krzyzewski took rigorously disciplined approaches to running their programs and to winning games. Coach V, an ACC coaching character of a kind with Georgia Tech's Bobby Cremins, Maryland's Lefty Dreisel, and Wake's Bones Kinney, improvised, rhapsodized about dreams, defied conventional thinking. Valvano lent what he called the joy of life to the games he played, whether basketball or electronic darts. He employed junk defenses. He unapologetically eschewed looking for perfection, stating he sought only to be .500 during the ACC regular season. He reckoned that was good enough to earn a bid to the NCAAs, where his motto was famously survive and advance. An enduring favorite, central to Valvano's popularity because of or despite his uncommon methods, his talent-rich teams had a .647 winning percentage, a shade better than compiled by Hall of Famer Gary Williams at Maryland. During Valvano's decade at the helm, NC State won its second national title after 1974 and set a school record since duplicated with 5 straight NCAA appearances, 1985 through 89. His Wolfpack also grabbed a pair of ACC championships, 1983 and 1987, and finished first during the 1985 and 89 ACC regular seasons, feats unmatched since. Success made Valvano an enduring favorite among many state fans, off-court travails notwithstanding, including years of competitive struggles by a program given more rigorous internal standards after he left. Certainly his popularity was evident a quarter century ago as he accepted the Reynolds crowd's acclaim, greeted his former players, then made his way slowly to midcourt. Valvano removed a microphone from a stand with practiced ease and spoke as he paced the school emblem. He joked at his own expense, retold a well-worn story. He hummed the school fight song, revving the participatory engine of crowd enthusiasm. That's power. That's power, he sighed. I miss that. He discussed his debilitating battle with cancer, efforts that led to formation of the V Foundation for Cancer Research, which to date has raised more than $150 million for its mission. His elegiac remarks anticipated the much replayed speech he delivered less than 2 weeks later at the ESPY Awards, from a "Don't ever give up" peroration echoing Winston Churchill to insisting that what cancer can't touch is my mind, my heart, and my soul. It can't touch those things. Valvano concluded his 13-minute farewell address by leading the faithful in one last snatch of the school fight song. Then he joined the game telecast, going his separate way.
One more brief Olympic article. Von loses Schifrin as foe in downhill. A potential marquee event of these Olympics, a heavyweight showdown in alpine skiing, went by the wayside. Curse that gusty wind. Lindsey Vonn still was primed to contend for gold in the women's downhill Wednesday morning, late Tuesday in the U.S. But 22-year-old American star Michaela Schifrin couldn't cram it into her schedule thanks to more wind disruptions. Organizers moved the Alpine Combined event up one day to Thursday because of expected high winds Friday, a weather issue that has plagued skiing events at these games. Shiffrin is expected to contend for a medal in that event, so she withdrew from downhill to give herself enough preparation and recovery time. And back to our ice dancing topic, the Canadians earned gold. Tessa Virtue and Scott Moir were golden in their final Olympic performance. The Canadian couple took the ice one last time and produced a dramatic interpretation of Moulin Rouge, flawlessly executing a 4-minute program that earned them the gold medal in ice dancing. Canadian skier Cassie Sharp won gold in the women's freestyle halfpipe. South Korea won the penalty-filled women's 3,000-meter short track relay final, and while Italy took silver and the Netherlands earned bronze. Slovenian hockey player Ziga Zeglic became the third athlete at the Pyeongchang Games to test positive for doping. Martin Fourcade became the first athlete to win 3 gold medals at the Pyeongchang Olympics when he anchored France to victory in the biathlon. Germany swept the Nordic combined large hill event podium with Johann Ridzik winning gold, Fabian Riesel taking silver, and Eric Frenzel earning bronze.
All right, Janet, we're going to go on to the life section of the NNO. And under the food, we're going to continue the Olympic theme that you started and go into Olympic host region known for a simple, heartwarming fare. And there's a picture of a soup. Gamja onsini is a potato dumpling soup that's popular in Korea during the winter months. As a middle schooler growing up in South Korea, I still vividly remember the 1988 Seoul Olympic Games. At that time, the country was a burgeoning democracy, and South Koreans were proud of hosting an international mega event. I've since become a hospitality professor and researcher in the U.S., and thanks to the growing popularity of Korean culture, dubbed the Hallyu or Korean wave, I tend to get asked a lot about Korean food. Now, 30 years later, South Korea's second Olympic Games and its first Winter Games are being held in Pyeongchang in Gangwon Province or Gangwon-do. Coincidentally, I recently received a message from a former student who was planning to visit Pyeongchang because her cousin, Jacqueline Wiles, will be competing for the U.S. Alpine Ski Team. She wanted to know more about the foods she should try. Lucky you, I thought, because there are almost too many to name. Ingredients of Potato Valley. With its beautiful landscapes and relaxed beach towns, Gangwon-do is known as one of the best and most convenient winter escapes for many Seoulites. Located on the eastern coast of a peninsula in northeast South Korea, the region faces the East Sea. But about 3/4 of the province is covered by mountainous forest, which means there is very little farmland. The province is divided into 2 regions, Yangso in the west and Yangdong in the east, where Pyeongchang is located. Such an environment, surrounded by mountains but bordering the sea, creates the conditions for cuisine that's unique to the region. Dishes tend to include some combination of potato, corn, buckwheat, or seafood. In Korea, people from Gangwon-do are actually called folks from Potato Valley. In the Yangdong region, seafood is a main fare. At the Jumunjin Fish Market, the largest fish market on South Korea's east coast, vendors sell red snow crab, octopus, mackerel, sole, flounder, and a whole medley of sashimi. Nearby restaurants will cook seafood by request, either steaming, boiling, grilling, frying, or even including it in soup or stew. In the Yangso region, with its rocky terrain, potato, millet, corn, buckwheat, and mountain vegetables are the main ingredients in most dishes. Potatoes will be used for pastas, pancakes, dumplings, or snacks. Overall, the province's food is simple, healthy, and can appeal to a global palate. The cooking method, which accentuates the natural flavors and aromas of the ingredients, is also rather uncomplicated. Simple, heartwarming fare. The following are a sample of several delicious dishes that are typical of the region. Gamja ongsini, a potato dumpling soup, is a vegetarian option. The potatoes are grated, drained, squeezed, and mixed with potato starch. Then it's boiled in a broth with vegetables. This is a popular winter dish. A soft tofu called chodang, sondubu, is another vegetarian option. During the congealing process, which goes through several steps, salt water from the East Sea is used. This is a soft, light version of tofu, perfect for a soup or stew. But my favorite way of eating it is eating fresh, after steaming it with a bit of soy sauce and sesame oil. It's so light and soft that it's almost like eating ice cream. Galbi, spicy stir-fried chicken with vegetables, and makgusu, buckwheat noodle, are two dishes usually served together. They are popular in Chungcheong, and the capital of the Gangwon-do. The galbi is seasoned and deboned chicken, stir-fried with sliced rice cake, sweet potato, perilla leaves, and cabbage. In restaurants, the spicy, sweet, and meaty dish is usually served on the same tableside hot grill that it's been cooked on. Its companion, makguksu, is a buckwheat noodle served either in a chilled broth or with a sauce. The harmony of heat and coldness showcase the yin and yang of this frugal but filling meal. Finally, there's asam bulgogi, which is spicy stir-fried squid and pork bulgogi. Bulgogi, pork marinated in a sweet and spicy sauce, is one of the most well-known Korean dishes and popular with many foreigners. But the Gangwon-do version mixes squid with the pork. Freshly caught from the East Sea, the squid transforms the dish into a surf and turf. The Pyeongchang Organizing Committee has built a K-food dome near the Olympic Plaza, the opportunity to sample the local fare. No matter what they choose, they'll be able to enjoy warm, hearty food, the perfect end to a day spent in the frigid mountains.
Aniko, you did a remarkable job of pronunciation in that article. I tip my hat to you.
Well, thank you. Who knows if it was right, but I tried. Thank you.
And this macaroni and cheese is for grown-ups. When it comes to macaroni and cheese, it's time to think outside the box. You know the box we need. It's bright, shiny blue, and the macaroni and cheese that comes out of it is bright, shiny orange. The box stuff is fine for kids. It's fast and cheap, and they can't tell the difference. This author obviously had never met my grandchildren. But anyway, for adults, it's time to do something better. It's time for homemade macaroni and cheese. Making macaroni and cheese at home is nothing new. Italians have been doing it since at least the early 1300s, when a recipe for it was included in one of the first medieval cookbooks, Livre de Cucina. But pairing it with other inventive ingredients, that's what's new. That's thinking outside the box. I decided to make several different toppings to go with macaroni and cheese. But first I had a conundrum. How should I make the macaroni and cheese? There is the American version, which begins by making a roux, cooking flour and butter together, and using it to thicken and flavor milk. And then there is the Italian version, which begins by soaking shredded cheese in milk until it starts to break down. The American version is a bit thicker and richer. The Italian version is creamier. They were both so great that I decided to use them both as the base. It's the toppings that matter anyway. Because it takes the longest to cook, I first made a barbecued brisket, which I chopped and put on top of the macaroni and cheese. A local food truck serves it this way, and I saw one that looked so good I decided to write an entire story about toppings for macaroni and cheese. I made the brisket in a slow cooker, which was easy, and the primary flavoring was a bottle of barbecue sauce, which made it easier. All I had to add were some onions, a touch of brown sugar, and a handful of spices. The beef had just a hint of kick to it because of the barbecue sauce, which makes it the perfect foil for a smooth and creamy macaroni and cheese. And that was the thinking behind my second topping, too. Few foods go as well with a rich creaminess as buffalo chicken, so I made a buffalo sauce. It's basically Frank's Red Hot sauce and butter, plus some vinegar, Worcestershire sauce, cayenne pepper, and garlic powder, and tossed it with some shredded chicken. The combination of the chicken sauce and macaroni and cheese was bliss on a plate, and only later did I think of a way to make it even more blissful by replacing some of the fontina cheese in the macaroni and cheese with blue cheese. That would be almost more bliss than a fellow could stand. And speaking of a surfeit of blissfulness, I decided to make a 5-spice beef stew and use that with macaroni and cheese too. 5-spice powder is a Chinese staple, mixing ground Szechuan peppercorns, star anise, ground cloves, cinnamon, and fennel seeds. You could make it yourself, but it's easier just to use the mixture from a jar. I used mine to make a very simple stew consisting merely of beef, broth, onions, garlic, and crushed tomatoes with a liberal dose of the 5-spice powder. I wanted the spices to be the most prevalent flavor, guessing that they would be an especially effective counterpoint to the cheese and macaroni. I was right, and I also liked the way the mixture brought an Asian echo to a quintessentially American and Italian dish. My last dish of macaroni and cheese was unlike the others. It did combine macaroni with cheese, but it was less creamy than the others because it had no milk, although it did have a bit of cream. Nothing goes better with cream than mushrooms. Entire civilizations could have been built on that combination. This dish first roasts a pound of mushrooms, then mixes them in a pan of macaroni and cheese, including ricotta cheese. Then it is all baked together. You can smell the mushrooms even as you take it out of the oven. Then when you taste it, it's even more impressive. It is macaroni and cheese outside the box and taken to another level. Sorry, I slipped up on you there.
No problem at all. Well, we're going to head right on into the Carolinian, and we've got an article on Lena Horne. The U.S. Postal Service today celebrates the life and legacy of Lena Horne as the 41st honoree in the Black Heritage Stamp Series during a first of issue ceremony at Pierre Norton Symphony Space. Today we honor the 70-year career of a true American legend, said Deputy Postmaster General Ronald Stroman, who dedicated the stamp. With this forever stamp, the Postal Service celebrates a woman who used her platform as a renowned entertainer to become a prolific voice for civil rights advancement and gender equality. Joining Stroman to unveil the stamp were Gail Lumet Buckley, an author, and Horne's daughter, Christian Steiner, photographer, and Amy Niles, President and Chief Executive Officer, WBGO Radio. The stamp art features a photograph of Lena Horne, taken by Steiner in the 1980s. Kristen Monthei colorized the original black and white photo using a royal blue for the dress, and a color Horne frequently wore. Monthei also added a background reminiscent of Horn's Stormy Weather album, and a few clouds to add texture and to subtly evoke the album title. Art director Ethel Kessler designed the stamp. Born in Brooklyn, New York, on June 30, 1917, Horn was a trailblazer in Hollywood for women of color and used her fame to inspire Americans as a dedicated activist for civil rights. Horn began her career as a dancer at Harlem's Cotton Club and later became a featured vocalist with touring orchestras. The rampant racial discrimination she encountered from audiences, hotel and venue managers, and others was so disconcerting that she stopped touring, and in 1941 she made her move to Hollywood. A year later, she signed a contract with MGM, one of the first long-term contracts with a major Hollywood studio, with the stipulation that she would never be asked to take stereotypical roles then available to black actors. Her most famous movie roles were in Cabin in the Sky and Stormy Weather, both released in 1943. During World War II, Horn entertained at camps for black servicemen, and after the war worked on behalf of Japanese Americans who were facing discriminatory housing policies. She worked with Eleanor Roosevelt in pressing for anti-lynching legislation. In the 1960s, Horn continued her high-profile work for civil rights, performing at rallies in the South, supporting the work of the National Council for Negro Women, and participating in the 1963 March on Washington. Horn's awards and honors include a Special Tony Award for her one-woman Broadway show, Lena Horne, The Lady and Her Music, 3 Grammy Awards, the NAACP Spingarn Medal, and the Actors Equity Paul Robeson Award. She was a Kennedy Center Honors recipient in 1984, and her name is among those on the International Civil Rights Walk of Fame at the Martin Luther King Jr. National Historic Site. Customers may purchase the Lena Horne Forever stamp at the postal store at usps.com/shop by calling 800-STAMP-24, that is 800-782-6724, and at post office facilities nationwide. A variety of stamps and collectibles are also available at ebay.com/stamps. Customers have 60 days to obtain first day of issue postmarks by mail. They may purchase new stamps at local post office facilities, at the postal store, usps.com/shop, or by phone. They must affix the stamps to envelopes of their choice, address the envelopes to themselves or others, and place them in envelopes addressed to FDOI-Lena Horne Stamp, USPS Stamp Fulfillment Services, and that would be the second line, and the third line, 8300 NE Underground Drive, Suite 300, fourth line, Kansas City, Missouri, 64144-9900. After applying the first day of issue postmark, the Postal Service will return the envelopes through the mail. There is no charge for postmarks up to a quantity of 50. For more than 50, customers are charged 5 cents each. All orders must be postmarked by March 30, 2018.
And here's more information about more stamps honoring African Americans. February is the month that celebrates Black history and honors those African Americans who helped shape this great nation known as America. The author of this is Danny K. Manning. As a graduate of a great black high school known as Garner Consolidated High, that was located in Garner and was an all-black school from the 1st grade to the 12th grade, I was taught by some of the great black scholars who had an impact on my life. Although Garner Consolidated High no longer exists, its legacy lives on. I also graduated as an honor student from Shaw University, which helped shape my future. Black History Month began as Negro History Week in February of 1926 by the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History. Their goal was to resolve all doubt concerning the contributions of the Negro to civilization and his or her services to the American nation. In an effort to stress this phase of history, it is important to call to the attention of the public what avenues for study and research relating to the Negro's past were available. Recognizing that blacks are a continuing strength in our society, Black History Week was extended and became Black History Month and is celebrated during the month of February. Today, when all groups are called upon to resist aggression, we owe it to ourselves to extend the frontiers of democracy to include all races and all people. In this spirit, we must go forward to the celebration of Black History Month. During this month, we honor yesterday, embrace today, and challenge tomorrow. Why is Black history important? That question can be best explained by quoting from an article by Lerone Bennett Jr., who at the time was the senior editor and noted historian author for Ebony magazine. He wrote, quote, "There is a reciprocal relationship between the past and the future. The past is not something back there. It is happening now. It is the bet your father placed, which you must now cover. It is the internal urgency that makes you relate to people and institutions in a certain way. It is the web or relationships into which you were born and for which you must now answer. It is the structure of institutions that determined that you would be born in a certain place at a certain time and that you would end up here instead of somewhere else. History is knowledge, identity, and power." Carter G. Woodson wrote, "If a race has no history, it has not worthwhile tradition. It becomes a negligible factor in the thought of the world, and it stands in danger of being exterminated." To date, the Postal Service has issued numerous stamps that relate to African American heritage. These stamps portray specific people who are recognized for their achievements. Men and women of color have enriched America and the world with their achievements and discoveries in every field of human endeavor. The American Music Series distinguished African Americans Otis Redding, Dinah Washington, Nat King Cole, Ethel Waters, Muddy Waters, and Billie Holiday, to name a few. Jazz musicians greats include Louis Armstrong, John Coltrane, and Charlie Parker. In social reform and education, we honor Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, Ida B. Wells, and Mary McLeod Bethune. We also honor Benjamin O. Davis Sr., whose likeness appears on the 20th stamp in the Black Heritage Series. Davis served in the Spanish-American War and on General Eisenhower's staff during World War II. He advocated racial integration in the Army and saw it partially implemented late in World War II. The Kwanzaa stamp was another addition to U.S. Postal Service's holiday stamp series. This beautifully rendered, colorful symbol of an African-American family pays tribute to the African community and the historic struggle we have waged to stay strong and connected to our culture. Kwanzaa is celebrated December 26 to January 1. The U.S. Postal Service commemorated the African American cultural celebration by issuing the Kwanzaa stamp on October 22, 1997, in a ceremony officiated by Legree S. Daniels, member of the presidentially appointed Postal Service Board of Governors, at the Natural History Museum in Los Angeles County. The U.S. Postal Service's first Kwanzaa commemorative stamp was designed and illustrated by renowned artist Cynthia St. James. Cynthia St. James is a self-taught African-American artist whose work appears on numerous book covers, such as the cover of Terry McMillan's novel Waiting to Exhale, designs for UNICEF, children's picture books, greeting cards, and many licensed products, including the signature clothing line. Her style of using bright colors and geometric figures in motion with no facial features is easily recognized and a great asset to any stamp collection. Since its inception in 1966, the African American celebration of Kwanzaa has been a very important cultural tradition in this country. It is fitting that the symbol of family and togetherness is recognized and honored by the Postal Service in the commemorative holiday celebration stamp series. And what better way to honor these African Americans than to celebrate their contributions during Black History Month on a postage stamp that goes all over the world.
That was so interesting. Thank you, Janet. All right, we're going to go on to the Carolina Times now. Reverend Barber to speak at Duke for World Day of Social Justice. The Reverend Dr. William J. Barber II, founder of the Forward Together Moral Movement, will speak on poverty, health, and social justice Tuesday, February 20th. Well, that was yesterday. So we hopefully maybe some of you went there, but anyway, I'm sorry, that was yesterday. So okay. So we have also from the Carolina Times, Chapel Hill Carrboro Chamber of Commerce presents awards. The Chapel Hill Carrboro Chamber of Commerce convened 400 community leaders for its 75th annual meeting on February 8th to announce new initiatives and honor distinguished public and private sector leaders. Chapel Hill Town Manager Roger Stansel was awarded the Duke Energy Citizenship Award, and Council Member Donna Bell received the 2017 Chairs Award for Public-Private Partnership. Duke Energy District Manager Indira Everett presented the Citizenship and Service Award to Stansel in recognition of his integrity, stewardship, inclusion, initiative, teamwork, and accountability. The Duke Energy Citizenship and Service Award is a tribute to individuals or groups who make a difference in their communities and organizations by using their time, talents, and compassion to make a positive difference, Everett said. Recipients of the award help foster a culture of citizenship and service that acts as a catalyst for others to become involved. Stansel, a graduate of Wake Forest University and University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, was named Chapel Hill Town Manager in 2006. He announced that he will retire in September 2018. Roger's time in Chapel Hill will be remembered as one of effective, ethical leadership that engaged community, empowered employees, and encouraged and promoted partnership, Everett added. Through his years of service, Roger demonstrated the power of active listening and how to treat others with kindness and respect. He has shown us what true, thoughtful, intelligent, effective leadership looks like. Joe Levy, the Chamber's immediate past chair, presented the award for Public-Private Partnership to Council Member Bell. The award was created in 2010 by then Chamber Board Chair Joanne Fiore of AICPA to recognize an individual whose work and community service builds bridges between the community's public and private sectors. This year's award is presented to an elected official whose work advances the interests of our community by balancing her strong interests in social justice, environmental stewardship, and economic prosperity for all, Levy said. This individual convenes diverse voices in an effort to build consensus, and like the Chamber, works to advance the public interest over the special interest. And while we might not always agree, she has always made herself accessible and available to hear and consider the business perspective. Bell has served as a Chapel Hill Town Council member from 2009 to 2015 and is currently serving from 2015 to 2019. She holds a master's degree in social work from Smith College and a bachelor's degree in English from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. She currently works as a clinical social worker in private practice.
This article is a description of and review of the Moral Historic March that occurred on February 10th. With the theme taking resistance to the ballot box, the 12th annual Moral March Historic, thousands on Jones Street People's Assembly in Raleigh, February 10th, attracted thousands of demonstrators from across the state despite heavy rains. With protest signs castigating everything from the Trump administration to North Carolina's legislative Republican leadership, the extraordinary diverse crowd of young, old, black, white, Hispanic, straight, gay, and others marched through downtown Raleigh from Shaw University to just outside the state capitol. They heard from a plethora of speakers representing the unique coalitions involved, all imploring those gathered to make sure their voices and votes are heard come November for the midterm elections. Bishop Dr. William Barber, the former president of the NCAACP, spoke to those gathered by phone, urging them to indeed turn out the vote regardless of whatever barriers or restrictions are thrown at them. But the highlight of the event were the pointed remarks of the NCAACP's new president, Reverend Dr. T. Anthony Spearman, who used biblical analogies to illustrate the need for justice and invoked inspiration from civil rights leader Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to crystallize the societal evils that the NCAACP leader said must be confronted. Moral resistance is the means we use to dismantle the engines of destruction that drive us away from the mainlands of democracy while steering us toward the mountains of fascism, Reverend Spearman offered in a prepared speech. Spearman said the three engines of destruction were RIP, racism, impoverishment, and persecution. The antidote to racism is representation, he continued. Each human on this earth represents a spark of divinity. Representations begin with recognizing that every person has an equal spark of God within them. Representation is the reconstruction we seek when we resist racism at the ballot box. Addressing impoverishment, Dr. Spearman said the antidote was investment. Investment in our justice system is not only ensuring access to counsel and reconstructing our bail system so that it is not a poor tax. Investment in our justice system means reconstructing the administrative process so that someone who needs a protective order from an abusive ex-spouse doesn't have to take 2 days off work to sit in the back of a courtroom waiting to be heard for 10 minutes. The noise you're hearing, perhaps in the background, is the lawnmowers on our lawn. Good sign of spring. To continue, investment is the reconstruction we seek when we resist impoverishment at the ballot box. Lastly, Dr. Spearman warned about militarism, which he called persecution. The antidote to persecution is peace, he said. Our people are gunned down in the streets in numbers that exceed the numbers who were lynched and are imprisoned in numbers that exceed the numbers who were enslaved. Peace is the reconstruction we seek when we resist persecution at the ballot box. Reverend Spearman called on NAACP members and coalition partners to, quote, take your resistance to the ballot box, unquote. Per the 2018 midterm elections and ultimately the 2020 presidential election. In the buildings which line Jones Street, the men who cloak themselves with smiling faces by day and in white sheets by night have returned, and they are lynching our democracy, he charged, adding, this unconstitutional General Assembly on Jones Street is what the KKK looks like in the 21st century. Let's take our resistance to the ballot box.
Thank you, Janet. We're going to go on to the Washington Daily now. Churches donate money to help set up shelter. And the Open Door, there's a picture of 4 women, helping hands. Open Door Community Center Representative Marcia Norwood accepts checks from Gail Nadell with St. Peter's Episcopal Church and Brenda Mitchell with First Christian Church, as Miriam Robertson observes. Mitchell and Robertson organized the 2018 Cookie Express at First Christian Church. The Open Door Community Center is benefiting from monetary contributions that have roots in a local Christmas tradition, the Cookie Express at Washington's First Christian Church. The Open Door Community Center is the organization working to open a shelter for homeless women and children in the greater Washington area. A portion of the revenues generated by their Cookie Express involvement was donated by 2 churches to Open Door Community Center. Washington's First Christian Church, which offers the Cookie Express on a December Saturday before Christmas, donated $2,200. Washington's St. Peter's Episcopal Church sold Christmas gift cards from a table at the Cookie Express, donating $995 to Open Door Community Center. Each year, First Christian Church, and this is a total church effort, we raise money for 501c organizations, nonprofits, within the county and in other areas as well. It's all 501c organizations. It's mostly local, said Brenda Mitchell, who along with Miriam Robertson organized the 2017 Cookie Express with assistance from other church members. The church made other donations with the $6,000 raised by Cookie Express, Mitchell said. We had Camp Carolina, the Wildlife Youth Program, Rose Haven. The main focus every year for the Cookie Express is to come together and raise money. We have a good time doing it. We just have a wonderful time. It's a lot of hard work. We have to do a lot of work to decorate and get everything going, Mitchell said. The Cookie Express Committee meets in January and votes on which organizations and other entities will receive donations from the Cookie Express revenues, she noted. It's not a decision by just 1 or 2 people, Mitchell said. St. Peter's Episcopal Church spokeswoman Gail Nadell explained the process behind the church's donation. What we did was we began a project called the Christmas Alternative Giving Program, and that started last year. What that is, we formed a committee and met and decided which agencies. We chose 6 agencies to receive the funds we were going to raise. Open Door Community Center was one of the 6, she said. We made Christmas cards that our members could buy and give to anyone that would represent a Christmas gift. So they made a donation to purchase a card. The minimum donation was $5 per card. That could be sent as their Christmas gift to anyone, Nadell explained. It's a very popular project that we started. St. Peter's contacted First Christian Church about setting up a table where those cards could be purchased. Mitchell, Nail, Robertson, and Marcia Norwood, spokeswoman for Open Door Community Center, praised that cooperation. We do appreciate this support. It shows there is, first of all, a huge need in our area for this shelter for homeless women and children. It shows there is broad-based community support, Norwood said. We have had several fundraisers that have been offered to us and that different groups have held for us. We are very appreciative of that. The center is closer to opening the doors of the shelter. Washington's Board of Adjustment, during its meeting Thursday, approved a special use permit to allow the nonprofit to operate a temporary shelter for homeless women and children at 1230 Cowell Farm Road. The temporary residents will have a minimum staff of 4 people, according to a city document. We are very thankful for that. We can start moving ahead now that the property is available for us to do what we need to do to get this shelter going, Norwood said. Open Door Community Center received $8,000 from the city this fiscal year as a one-time contribution to get the nonprofit up and running. It requested $10,000.
This from the Washington Daily News again. Judge rules Blunt's Creek permit reinstatement. Sound Rivers, North Carolina Coastal Federation, and stakeholders in Blunt's Creek Business and Recreation were handed another win Friday in Pender County. Superior Court Judge Joshua Willie Jr. denied a request by attorneys for Martin Marietta Materials, Inc. to hold off on putting into effect his order to vacate a permit that would allow the company to discharge up to 12 million gallons of fresh water per day into the headwaters of a brackish Blunt's Creek. We are very pleased with the ruling, said Sound Rivers Executive Director Heather Deck. We're going to keep doing everything we can to protect Blunt's Creek. About a dozen Beaufort County residents made the trip to the Pender County Courthouse to watch the proceedings, according to Deck. In December, Willie ruled the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality had not followed its own standards in place to protect the biology of Blunt's Creek when the agency issued a permit that would allow the fresh water used in the mining process to be discharged into the creek. Willie ordered the state permit withdrawn. Martin Marietta attorneys were back in court to ask for the stay because, though the company has not constructed the mine, the permit is only valid for 5 years and it would have expired at the end of August. The request for a stay was an effort to avoid having to go through the entire permit application with the state a second time, as opposed to simply applying to renew the permit, according to Deck. Both sides have appealed Willie's December ruling. The state and Martin Marietta on Willie's finding that the state violated environmental standards, and Sound Rivers and the NCCF for Willie's ruling against their argument that the state's standards of pH in classified swamp waters were also violated with the issuance of the permit. This case has been bouncing around the court system for the past 5 years since Sound Rivers, NCCF, and a group of Blunt's Creek residents and business owners called Save Blunt's Creek banded together to challenge the permit of the Court of Law. Their argument is that the continuous flow of fresh water into the creek will irrevocably change the pH of the water and the aquatic species living there. Attorneys for Martin Marietta have argued that though the pH could change, it would change to support other species. From our perspective at Sound Rivers, this dispute relates to a discharge of an enormous amount of water from the mine that doesn't have to happen, Deck said in a past interview. We are not in dispute of the mine itself, but there are other options currently available to the company that would be much less harmful to the environment and would also be compliant with state law. It's unfortunate that we had to go to court when a sensible solution exists. While both parties have appealed to the NC Court of Appeals, Deck said it could take up to a year before the case could be heard.
Well, the Kingston Free Press has an article, High Amount of Vacancies, Staff Turnover Found in Rural Hospitals. In 2014, hospitals in 34 states were expected to need more nurses than they could find. Last year, that number shrank to just 7 states, with many, including North Carolina, having a surplus of nurses. What that second figure doesn't account for is where those nurses will be versus where they will be needed most. A study published by the North Carolina Organization for Nurse Leaders in 2017 showed that while the state has a healthy balance of nurses per 10,000 residents, there are still high numbers of vacancies and staff turnover found in more rural areas. We are definitely feeling that, said Laurel Malloy, CNO, and Vice President of Nursing at UNC Lenore Healthcare. Currently, UNC Lenore has more than a dozen vacancies for registered nurse positions. The bulk of those vacancies are on the hospital's 3rd and 4th floors, 2 of the busiest in the building. The hospital is not the only one. Every month, Malloy participates in a call with heads of hospitals from around the state. Hospitals in Nash, Johnston, Wayne, High Point, and in western North Carolina are all suffering from similar staff shortages, she said. Those vacancies are fueled by a number of factors, from retiring baby boomers, an economy that is allowing more people the freedom to move, and a lack of graduates from local colleges coming to work at the hospital. Economically, nurses are like everybody else. They want to move to a town that is economically meeting their needs, Malloy said. The hospital also has to compete with bigger cities with more to do for young people entering the field. Last year, the hospital lost a certified nurse anesthetist to a hospital in Asheville because that city is more enticing to someone still in their 20s, according to Malloy. The number of nurses UNC Lenore needs or can keep on staff at any time isn't an easy one to nail down. The hospital finances full-time nursing positions based on the average number of patients staying at the hospital each day. The challenge with basing your finances on average is that the real world is not always an average, Malloy said. So the challenge is being able to have enough of those FTEs, like right now, and FTEs are full-time equivalents, like right now when it's flu season and patients are typically a little bit sicker. The current goal for the hospital is to have 1 nurse for every 5 patients. Without counting travel nurses, nurses not on full-time staff but contracted to work at the hospital, the current ratio is about 1 nurse to every 6 patients in the hospital. Adding in those contracted nurses, the hospital is currently at its 1-to-5 ratio. In order to keep up with the ebb and flow of patients coming into the hospital, UNC Lenore also has staff positions that include some nursing duties. If, for example, a patient needs a CAT scan or a doctor needs assistance with a procedure that might take a long time, certain staff members who are licensed nurses can be called to assist with those procedures while floor nurses continue their rounds. Those same nurses can also be called into the emergency department during busy hours to help get patients admitted to the hospital or out-processed to go home. The hospital also employs a group of medicine history technicians who track down patients' medical histories, saving nurses from doing some of the more time-intensive work involved with tracking down family members or pharmacists with medication lists. While travel nurses and staff are able to assist in nursing duties can fill the gaps, Malloy said the hospital is still trying to fill its vacant positions. UNC Lenore Healthcare contracts with a marketing agency to advertise the hospital and some of its openings around the country. Dustin George can be reached at 252-559-1077 or at kinston.com.
Another article from the Kinston Free Press. The first step of power upgrade on Vernon Avenue is set. Kinston has taken the first step in a future large project to upgrade the electric system on Vernon Avenue. Monday evening, City Council approved a $167,065. It includes $21,790 in contingency funds to hire Booth and Associates of Raleigh as engineers on the project. In September, City Council approved a $1.5 million budget to upgrade the circuit feeding Vernon Avenue, a 3.4-mile project that will increase the wire size and replace 200 utility poles. The larger wires will allow the city to use intersecting circuits to bypass outages during emergencies like ice storms, and the utility poles will be replaced because they are 40 years old or older, according to a memorandum from Earl Bodkin, interim electric system manager, to Rhonda Barwick, Director of Public Services. Barwick said the first step was for the city to work with engineers and get the design work completed. She wasn't sure how long that would take, but once it is completed, the city will award a bid for labor and materials. Once work begins on the ground, it could take 10 to 12 months to complete the project, Barwick said. The city did a similar upgrade most recently on Hardy and Cary roads, where the size of the wires was increased, Barwick said. The work on Vernon Avenue will be a little different because there are portions of multiple circuits feeding into those lines, Barwick said. The power lines on Vernon Avenue originate from the old power plant on Atlantic Avenue. When they reach Vernon Avenue, then go to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and left to the area of Food Line across from Fairfield Park, Barwick said. The power lines will be 50% larger and able to handle future increases in power usage, she said. We are seeing customers using more electricity since the lines were put in, Barwick said, adding the upgrades will also benefit any future commercial growth along Vernon Avenue.
All right, we're going to continue on to the Jacksonville Daily. Veterans take part in President's Day pinning ceremonies. 3 different ceremonies put on by Lower Cape Fear Hospice honored veteran patients by presenting them their service flag pin. Lower Cape Fear Hospice honored 40 of its veteran patients in Jacksonville with pinning ceremonies Monday. Patients were presented with a veteran's service flag pin, designed to honor and distinguish veterans who have served in the U.S. Armed Forces. Among them was retired Gunnery Sergeant Joel A. James, a home hospice patient who took part in the ceremony surrounded by family and friends. It is an honor for me to sit here and have you guys honor me because I'm a Vietnam-era veteran, James said to the Marines who presented him with a flag pin and certificate. He said he was especially touched to see Sergeant Janet Hall, a woman Marine, at the ceremony after seeing how far women in the Marines have come. After seeing a woman Marine open the locker room doors for one of the teams at the Super Bowl earlier this month, he was talking with a friend about how the woman was wearing a blood stripe on her uniform, an indicator of rank on the pants of dress blues. It made me feel proud that the Marine Corps recognized women do have a place, and when they wear our uniform, it becomes their uniform, James said. The walls of James' home in Jacksonville are covered in model cars from the National Motor Museum Mint, a collection he said he started in 2005 after his wife passed. James said collecting kept him busy as he added different models of cars, including 40 different Corvettes. Following the ceremony, James pointed out his pictures from the time in Marines and his 3 diplomas, one from Military Police School, one from the University of Florida for Drug and Alcohol Counseling, and one from the University of North Carolina for Highway Patrol School. I was the 5th Marine to graduate from NC Highway Patrol School, and I consider that the highest honor, James said. James' daughter, Jenny Standard, said the ceremony was special to her because she was 1 year old when her father retired from the Marine Corps. She didn't see his retirement ceremony or any of his military honors. For me, because I'm the baby, it was nice and cool to see him being honored, Standard said. I'm proud of him. Teresa McCall, Community Outreach Coordinator for Lower Cape Fear Hospice, said she has only been with the organization for 3 months, but believes the pinning ceremony is important to the Jacksonville community. It's very significant because we have the base right here with us, McCall said. She said reaching out to active duty and retired service members in a community is important. McCall said the pinning ceremony stemmed from the center wanting to do something special for its patients and veterans in facilities. A lot of times our veterans retire and they don't get the acknowledgement they deserve, she said. So I wanted to come down and do something special for our veterans. Not only were veterans recognized, but widows and spouses of veterans received pins in honor of their sacrifice and dedication to their spouses. McCall's husband, Sergeant John McCall, was one of the active duty Marines helping distribute pins and talk about their significance at each location. He said knowing his wife was involved, he'd most likely be using some of his volunteer hours to help out with the ceremonies. It was inevitable I was going to be part of it, McCall joked. Nevertheless, whenever she explained the significance of what was going to be taking place today, I couldn't bypass an opportunity to pay tribute to our veterans who are in hospice care. John McCall addressed the patients at Liberty Commons with his own thanks. On behalf of all service members, at home and abroad, I'd like to say that we appreciate our veterans, John McCall said. Because of your service, we are able to stand here today and do what we do best. Residents at Liberty Commons Assisted Living Center and Premier Rehabilitation Center in Jacksonville were presented with pins as well. At Liberty Commons, the following people received pins: Gregory Knapp, Harry Lucas, Charles Smith, William Travers, Sam Cox. The following patients at Premier Rehabilitation Center received pins: Marvin Knepp, Robert LaVille, Callan Manuel, Floyd Morgan, Wayne Morton, Roy Yedo, Shirley Williams, Charlie Jarman, Paul Carrington, Wayne Bowers, Fernandez Baker.
Kinston isn't the only community getting some improvements in their streets. Jacksonville as well. Jacksonville Council to discuss new Bridge Street improvements. Discussions about downtown Jacksonville have been on the agenda several times so far in 2018, and this week was no exception. New Bridge Street improvements is on the agenda for the Jacksonville City Council workshop this week, which starts at 6 p.m. Tuesday at City Hall. City staff began working with property owners in a 4-block area of the street, from City Hall down to New Bridge Middle School, in September 2017, said City Manager Richard Woodruff. The city is looking at upgrading the area, including through sidewalks, landscaping, resurfacing roads, changing from a 4-lane to a 2-lane traffic pattern, and putting utilities underground, Woodruff said. At the workshop, city staff will update the council on their progress over the last 60 days. Staff members have been analyzing the water, sewer, and storm drainage systems. Woodruff said the sewer lines are in generally good condition, but the storm drains need to be enlarged, and the water lines are in poor condition. Their condition directly determines the amount of money and the schedule that will be needed for New Bridge Street, Woodruff explained. Over the next 3 to 4 years, the city's capital improvements budget will provide funding for necessary improvements downtown. This spring, Woodruff said another block will have their sidewalks improved, the block containing the U.S. Post Office and the Bicycle Gallery, while the city designs underground improvements. These improvements must be made before the sidewalks in some areas are upgraded, so new sidewalks aren't dug up to place utilities underground. The goal is to have this 4-block area of downtown Jacksonville completed within 2 to 3 years, Woodruff said. But these aren't the only changes coming to the area. Zing Zoom Children's Museum is slated to open within the next several months, Woodruff said, and Niche Motorsports was approved for a different kind of business venture at the council's meeting on January 16th. While city staff had reservations about changing the United Development Ordinance to fit a new type of business downtown, the council approved Niche Motorsports' request to allow restoration of collector-type vehicles. The business will likely restore a dozen or fewer motorcycles and cars annually, with paint work done off-site at other local businesses, and sold to high-end clientele. A partner of the business, Jamie Ray, spoke to the council about his plans at the meeting and said, "It'll be a small fortune, a small volume of high-end cars in the $50,000 to $125,000 range. There were plenty of opportunities for the business to work in the area of Onslow," Ray explained to the council, "but he was born and raised here. He wanted to be part of revitalizing the downtown area." Councilman Randy Thomas agreed and at the meeting said, "If we're truly sincere about getting downtown redeveloped, we've got to maybe take some risks." The rest of the council agreed, and Niche Motorsports' request was approved unanimously. Ray's partner in the business, Kevin Holmes, who also owns 614 New Bridge Street, and is looking at using the 3,500 square foot area to bring a couple of restaurants downtown, with the possibility of offices or galleries for photographers upstairs. "It's a really good vibe," Holmes said of the downtown area. Holmes said he and Ray are both excited about the work being done downtown and look forward to the future. "This area will not ever compete with Western Boulevard as the retail center of the community," Woodruff said. But he added that the type of businesses located on New Bridge Street, like Johnson Drug, the Organic Market, the Bicycle Gallery, as well as the businesses coming soon, all help develop downtown as a novelty destination area. That's why projects like upgrading the aesthetics of the area with landscaping and new sidewalks are so important, Woodruff said. These types of projects bring businesses to the area by creating an inviting outside environment that encourages the public to visit. In addition, the council will be given an update on the Bio Tower at Sturgeon City at the workshop, Woodruff said. The 30-foot tower was recently cleared out inside, which took more than 100 trips to the landfill, and the now empty tower has potential. Woodruff said that the view of Wilson Bay from the top of the tower is phenomenal, and city staff is looking at what the cost would be to create a viewing platform for the top. It would be a great location for weddings or other social activities, Woodruff said.
On to Carteret News. No explosives found after Walmart Market evacuated for bomb threat. Emergency services and personnel from Marine Corps Air Station Cherry Point found no explosives after responding Saturday to a bomb threat at the Walmart neighborhood market in Newport. Officials confirmed they are conducting a criminal investigation into the threat. Newport Police Captain Keith Lewis said his department received notification at 9:50 a.m. that a customer at the Walmart market on Highway 70 had found a note with a bomb threat in the restroom, which the customer gave to the store's manager. She evacuated the store and called 911, Captain Lewis said, that morning after police, along with Newport Fire and EMS and the Carteret County Sheriff's Office, had secured the perimeter and set up a staging area at the Speedway gas station next to the store. The Newport Moose Lodge opened that morning to provide shelter to the evacuated employees, while Morehead City Fire and EMS provided them transportation to the lodge. Newport police called in K-9 units from USMC Cherry Point, which arrived at 11:37 a.m. and conducted a sweep of both the exterior and interior of the building and its parking lot. By 12:40, the sweep was complete, and Captain Lewis said no explosive materials were found. The police officers were doing a quick sweep with store management, the captain said at the time. He said once the walk-through was finished, law enforcement would release the store to management and begin their criminal investigation into the threat, processing the scene where the note was found, and interviewing staff. While no explosive devices were found, Captain Lewis said there was still an impact from the threat alone, that being the economic impact to both the Walmart store and Speedway, both of which had to be evacuated, as well as the time and resources spent by first responders. Newport Mayor Dennis Barber was also on the scene Saturday. It's sad somebody would do this, the mayor said. All the impact to these two businesses and the resources spent over someone placing a note. We'll be investigating this, and if we find them, they'll be prosecuted to the fullest extent. I'm grateful to all the departments for their work and to the Moose Lodge for providing shelter. After Speedway was cleared, the gas station opened for business. Tracy Spikes, the station manager, was stocking shelves and setting up coffee makers with her co-workers when the News Times interviewed her. Why are people so crazy? She asked rhetorically.